Hey, sports fans! Coach Nick here, and welcome to the live show every Sunday morning. We broadcast at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon on the East Coast, and we have our green room going on also at the same time, which allows you to come in and join the conversation and chop it up with me, which I always like to hear. We got some people kind of streaming into the room now, which is nice to see. So let's, if you're over on the YouTube side and you want to come on in, just go download the Green Room app, find B-Ball Breakdown. You'll see the show in the NBA chat, and you can join me because I want to hear what you guys are up to. And let's see here. I see a couple people in there. So always just, request to speak, and I'll bring you in. And it sounds beautiful now. We got all the whole thing set up perfectly. And we could talk. Let's talk about the NBA. The thing I haven't been doing much is watching Summer League. I've seen some of the clips on Twitter as they pass by, but I want to hear from you guys. I feel like there are probably some good storylines I'm going to have to cover in the next week about what's going on in Summer League and who is going to be irrationally exuberant about what's going to happen. The thing is, you have to remember that it's not always easy to ascertain what that means, what a good performance is in the Summer League versus what's going to translate into the NBA itself. That said, the game of the NBA has gotten to be so wide open and also so sort of focused on very specific roles. Like, for instance, certain people just go stand in the corner and they wait for the pass and they shoot it. You could replicate that in Summer League and then replicate it in the NBA as well. And I know I've seen people in the Summer League who would stand out in my mind when I've been there, and then I'm like, okay, I think he's going to be really good. One of those guys, by the way, is DeMar DeRozan. In 2010, I think my first time I went to Summer League, he was playing, and here's the thing: he probably was. Slated to do well in the NBA anyway, but I certainly remember him going like, this guy's going to be really good, and he certainly bore that out. And my memory was he wasn't like a surefire guy coming out of USC, I believe. It's been a long time. And so anyway, so you could picture some guys. I know like Rodney Hood grabbed my mind, my eye, CJ McCollum. So some of these guys you can kind of, get a little sense of what, we would hope would happen. And we're seeing that. So, throw out some stuff on the discussion. I'll give you some love in the discussion over on the green room, over the YouTube chat. Although don't forget, if you want to get my attention on YouTube, the super chat's always the way to go. And you get a nice big shout out from me and a thank you. So if you want to do that, but we have somebody who wants to come on already. We got Martin Jose who wants to join us. So Martin, what's happening, my man?
Nothing much. Just letting you know that I've been watching your channel for like 5 years, and I love your breakdown, and
awesome.
Keep it up.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anything you want to talk about?
What do you think about the Detroit Pistons with the young core with Saddiq Bey, Kate Cunningham, and Killian Hayes?
I think that they're going to be really exciting. I'm not so sure they're going to win a ton of games, but I listen. Saddiq Bey was probably my favorite player coming out of the draft last year, and Cunningham looks like he is absolutely the real deal. He's scorching it from behind the line, which is a great sign. If he's going to shoot that well in the NBA early, then I don't know how they're going to stop him. I mean, it's like the Grant Hill, a little taller version of Grant Hill back for them. So I'm really excited about it. I don't know if they're going to win a ton of games, but they're going to definitely be must-see TV for sure.
Definitely. Do you think they should? Are they gonna start Killian Hayes and Kate at the same time, or
Oh yeah,
Killian Hayes will either start or come at the bench, or Kate?
They better listen. I'd be really upset if they don't start those guys all together. Just let them get run, let them get experience, let them throw them in there, let them fail. It doesn't matter. They need the experience because there's no pressure to win this year anyway. So yeah, they should absolutely play as much as they can. I mean, it's funny because it's sort of been dichotomy to what's going on in New York, where a guy like Emmanuel Quickley, I figure this. I know they have a little bit more pressure because they did make the playoffs, but to me, it's like they keep bringing in, they bring in Kemba, they brought in Derrick Rose, so it's like, those guys are sort of, well, Derrick is at the end, Kemba is, closer to the end than he is in the beginning. So I always like to see young guys who show a lot of promise. It's not like Emmanuel Quickley didn't show a promise. I want to see him get as much run as possible and much experience. So certainly with the Pistons are in a great situation there, just to let them play, and just get as much, soak up the experience so that they'll be good and they'll probably pick up another piece or two depending on how the front office does, which is never a guarantee. So then, within a year or so, they'll probably be really, really good. And on that, they could be on that track for like what Philly did, right? When Philly got Embiid and Simmons, and then they started putting the core around and then started focusing on winning. I can see Detroit doing that same kind of thing with these kind of picks.
Got you, man. Thank you, Coach.
You got it. Thanks, Martin. And don't forget, if you want to join the show, I just bring you guys on all at the same time. So just kind of come in and request, and it always works out well somehow. We have, no one talks over each other, and we have a nice discussion. So I certainly don't want to hear myself speak for an hour straight. So you guys can definitely come in here, please, and give me some insights. Let's go over to the YouTube side just to check and make sure we're not missing anything over on that side. Should we talk about the Bulls? I've been trying to do a video for a week, and I got back from vacation, and then I presented at Coaching U Live. I will be getting the video back from that hopefully this week, so I'll try and share some little tidbits of it because I actually invented a new defense, and I demonstrated it, and I think it went well. The coach of the school that hosted us at this clinic pulled me aside later and said he was interested in perhaps running it for his team at the high school level. So that's really exciting because I, invented this thing. I kind of got on the court with some pros to run through it. But yeah, I need referees. I need another team. I need more data. So I'm really excited at the possibilities of him doing that and maybe even, sneaking out to Vegas a little bit to help him install it. So that was really exciting, and I talked to some NBA coaches about it. They all seem to be really intrigued at the very least. It's a pretty radical defense I came up with basically, you close out to behind the player, and you play like on the ball on the perimeter behind him, and it kind of causes a lot of havoc. And think about it this way: if you're playing behind the ball on the perimeter, you can't set ball screens. Right? There's no way to ball screen a guy who's directly behind the ball handler. So you kind of can eliminate ball screens, and then no one's going to shoot the three when you're breathing down the guy's neck from behind, and so you kind of are eliminating threes. So it's a very provocative, very interesting, and I certainly think that based on the fact that the offensive ratings continue to go up and up and up year over year, clearly what we're doing on defense now isn't working based on what the rule changes are. We need to do something radical in my mind. So this is something I came up with. We'll see. The coolest thing about it was that you can picture like a 3-1-1 alignment basically to start. The one on top gets to face the basket and around the top of the key area. And that was a position where he's getting like deflections and steals. The traditional position of that guy would have been back to the basket, can't see anything, doesn't know what's going on. So, and kind of the same for the wings as well. So it was kind of an exciting prospect, but we'll see. Now that said, it's not that radical in the sense that when you watch a drop coverage of the pick and roll, which happens every other possession, you have a guy behind, and then a center who's containing the ball, backing up and encouraging the mid range. So that positioning that I've kind of created right off the bat is not that foreign or strange. It really is as common as we would normally see it. At the very least, you could play it as an ice or a drop coverage on the pick and roll. As soon as the screen starts to come over, and I demonstrated this, just jump behind the guy. And now you're in a position where you can trail and, back tap and cause some problems that way. So I'm intrigued. I had a coach or two who were like, yeah, we could destroy this with this. And I was like, okay, well, here's an adjustment we make. And so we're figuring it out. But anyhow, after that, I got back. And all week, I just been kind of screwing around and looking at some clips. I got a bunch of clips for the Bulls breakdown. So I figured we could share some ideas there and discuss what's going on with that. And don't forget, if you want to chop it up with me, just hit that request button on the Green Room app. If you're over there on YouTube, do the same. I guess everyone's out on the beach today, huh? We got some people, but not as many as normal. But hey, so the Bulls, it's interesting because we have a guy like DeRozan coming in there who likes to shoot the mid-range. And so I was really studying Donovan's offense to see what kind of abilities there are for him to get those curls and shoot the 15-foot jumpers. But Doug, you want to jump on in here and then offer some thoughts?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to know what your thoughts are on your new defense. If they run Spain pick and roll, it's tough to see it, but it's tough to envision. I can't wait for your video. But if they run Spain pick and roll, and you have another guy setting another
that's a good
ball
question.
screen for the screener, how does that work in your defense there?
Okay, so the alignment, the 3-1-1 alignment would be in the Spain, you'd back screen the top one, the center, the free throw line area. Well, I already have a guy who's sunk in the lane on either of the blocks. So if it's the NBA, he can't be in the lane for more than 2.9 seconds. So I have the lower big man who could be very mobile and like long. Doesn't have to be 6'10", or it could be 6'7", 6'8". He's on the block. So he's basically standing there to pick up the roll on that end, in case on the back screen that back screen of the ball screener's man, and then the guy on top of the ball just switches to the guy who's setting the back screen. Actually, it works really well against Spain because again, you can't ball screen. So the guy coming up to set the first ball screen is just going to end up standing there because the defender is behind the ball, if you can picture that. And so at that point, it's just an easy switch, and there's a guy just waiting for the roll man. I think it actually covers everything. I guess the theory would be if the point guard wants to turn the corner and get all the way to the basket, you might have an issue with the lowest guy having to maybe just wait. The ball's coming at him now, and then the roll man's coming. But we do have the wing who is playing sort of behind the wing on that weak side. As the ball comes on that strong side, he has to bump down and play the traditional forward position in a 2-3 zone, basically. So he should be there as well. But it's a good call. I think that could work. But then again, I think you can also thwart it. The thing I had to be careful about with the Spain pick and roll is that, with my defense, the chase defense, is that there were moments when the offense went blah 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 and got a layup. And I had to resist the urge to say, this defense doesn't work. They got a layup, because you get layups against every defense, and every defense gets broken down from time to time. So it could happen, but I do feel like positionally, it's actually pretty well suited to cover Spain. All right, we got some more people.
Thank you very much.
You got it, Doug. Thanks. Great question. Keel, what's happening, my man? You've been busy out here.
What's up, man? How you been?
I've been, I have editor's block. Is that a thing? I think it's a thing.
I can get it. I got some writer's block here and there, so I get it.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? What's going on?
I was going to talk about Bulls and the Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan thing. By the way, I will say I was able to find some good actions out of Donovan's offense that I could picture DeRozan coming around for his mid-range stuff. So that was encouraging at the very least, but it's redundant in a way. LaVine and DeRozan. I think the thing I'm going to take away most from this is that Lonzo Ball is probably going to get squeezed the most. Right, I think he's going to suffer the most and get the least amount of touches and usage rate. What do you think?
In touches, yeah, but also I feel like the way to optimize Lonzo is you kind of play him in that connector role, kind of like what I feel like peak Scotty Barnes will be if he gets on a really good team where you have a good enough people offensively. So he just kind of fills the gaps, and he's kind of just like that glue guy there. Which I think in a perfect world, that could be Chicago for him.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I picture him easily. He'll bring the ball up, and then he'll enter it. And that might be it for him for a lot of those possessions. Maybe he'll wait for a spot up or two. I'm looking at his stats from last year. And remember, he played again alongside Zion, some really high usage guys. So he got his almost 13 shots a game and scored a little under 15 a game. I think those are high water marks for him. I honestly don't think – I don't know. In my mind – now, the assists, perhaps those go up maybe, but other than that, I feel like scoring-wise, it'll probably go down and field goal attempts. Now, that might mean that they're a better team because of that. I don't know. But just trying to figure out how all these three pieces are going to fit together, Caruso and the rest, I feel like that's going to be the one that's going to be the guy who's going to end up, suffering might be the wrong word, right? It's not suffering. It's just, less attempts. But what do you think it's going to work?
I think that they'll spend a lot of time to figure it out, but I feel like we also won't know if it works or not till towards the end of the season, probably post All-Star break is when we'll know if this actually will work.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, Donovan's going to need. Luckily, they have a full training camp now to work on this stuff versus the other years with COVID. So. That'll help, and I don't know. I'm not sold. Obviously, I mean, I'm not sold on the Lakers. So here's an interesting question. And then, if you're surfing right now, feel free to mute your mic until you're done surfing or washing your dishes. Thanks. Let's see. It's here's a good question. Will the Lakers be more successful with their new core or the Bulls? Now, here's the thing. You can't say the Bulls could be more successful in the sense that like the Lakers could win a championship. The Bulls are probably not there, but pound for pound, like improvement wise, right? Who do you think ends up improving more, has more of a positive impact? The Lakers or the Bulls with their new additions? What do we think?
Probably the Bulls.
We got probably the Bulls. Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I'm going to say the Bulls just because of the simple fact that Lakers don't have much more room to improve as far as record. They're a great team, and you're just adding a couple of more wins. You're going from 31 and 41 to projected 49, 50 wins. So it's going to be, a much bigger improvement.
Okay. I mean, I guess that's technically right. I mean, the Lakers ended up going 42 and 30, but we have to give them a break because of the long absence of both LeBron and AD. So fair enough. But then again, we can't ignore that. Like that could happen again, right? I don't know why we could. I love to just sort of pretend there won't be any injuries, right? But there's enough evidence there, even with LeBron, right? Like LeBron's kind of been missing games.
LeBron's going to take time. AD is also the master of getting these random injuries that are really small, but he'll get them like 30 times a season.
Pinky injury out 2 weeks.
Huh?
Right.
Pinky injury out 2 weeks.
Exactly. Like he'll get like a pinky or a small toe, like he'll stub his toe on the corner.
On his calendar.
Would that stop them from getting wins though? I mean, you got Westbrook, Melo.
If AD's not on the floor, that defense is falling apart.
At all. They're not.
This is my thing, though, to Emmanuel's point. Like, the amount of gaps AD is going to have to cover for defense this year compared to last year is going through the roof. Like, he's going to have to do everything defensively.
Oh, yeah, AD is going to have to have a case.
Like, AD is going to have to be Kevin Garnett out there this year to actually be good defensively.
And I will say this, like that's where the injuries happen. By the way, I want to tell you, thank God that nothing happened to KD, but KD had to work so hard on defense in the Olympics. I was worried watching some of those possessions that he was going to get hurt because he had to like lay out so much and jump, so high and cover so much ground to cover for some of the defensive issues they had on that team. That is where AD is definitely have to be worried for him because if he's going to try and do that, he's putting himself in positions where it's a potential injury. Very worrisome.
Yeah, I don't know how they let Caruso go. Like, especially from a defensive standpoint, right? Like, to talk about a dude who's like perfectly next to those guys, he'll just guard everybody and then he'll hit shots offensively. Like,
yeah. What was his deal? I mean, I'll tell you right now why they didn't sign him. How much did he get in Chicago?
37 or 32.
Yeah, he's got to take that deal.
Yeah,
he's an undrafted guy.
Let's see. They listed it. So 4 years, 37 is that what you said? Yeah. So what is that?
9 per.
9. Yeah. I mean, 9 per is a little bit rich, I think, for the Lakers, considering they have to pay LeBron and Russ and AD. He's definitely.
They also have his bird rights, so they could have went over the cap to sign that.
Yeah, but again, now you're going to pay twice as much, for when the cap hits you for Caruso. Right? That's the thing. Now, listen, I'm all in. I hear you. The things he did, like, there's a reason why the Lakers maintain their incredibly high defensive rating despite LeBron and AD being out for all that time, right? Their defense was very solid across the board, and the Caruso was a huge deal for that. So
KCP was good too, and they don't have him anymore.
They got Dwight back, which will help, by the way, in a different way. But yeah, KCP absolutely right. Last year, I don't want to say
Kendrick Nunn.
I want to say as much, but Kendrick Nunn defensively is not right.
He's not that good.
I don't think he's that great.
He's not that good.
Yeah, I'm searching my mind's eye for Kendrick Nunn footage on defense, and nothing's coming to mind. But again, another great pickup for him. Now, Kendrick Nunn, what was his deal for the Lakers? Do we know? I'm so bad on the contract stuff. Let's see.
Well, I'd say it was a
2-year.
It was,
or maybe a little bit more than that.
Here, Kendrick Nunn, he's getting 5 and 5, like 10 years, $2 million, 2 years, $10 million. So
that's not 2 year.
They got him for that. By the way, that's it. So I'm sure that's what they were thinking. We can get Nunn for half as much as Caruso and probably get 75% of the production across the board from him, right? Certainly they'll get more on the offensive end, I think, than Caruso would give them, probably. And then let's say they get half of the production on the defensive end. Overall, that's a good deal, right?
I mean, I guess. Like, and they're
still rather have Caruso.
I mean, we're not even paying attention to chemistry, right, and how those things fit together. Does none fit together with Russ, and does that work with AD and then LeBron of all people? Like, it's an interesting.
They also
conundrum.
resigned THT. So
yeah, right. Well, was that the choice between THT and Caruso? They had to make a choice.
That's what I'm thinking.
They definitely went.
None in THT. They're both from Chicago, and LeBron and not going to be here so long. Maybe they want some type of Chicago connection,
right?
None Kendrick and AD just to keep everybody happy. I don't know.
Right. Well, here's what's interesting. I'm looking at THT's contract, 3 years. Let's say 3 years, and he's getting 9, 10, and 11. It goes up. So they gave him the Caruso money. So yeah, that to me tends that they made that decision, which happens by the way in the NBA all the time. And I hate to make it like an appearance thing, right? But if you're looking at Caruso and you're looking at THT, and you're going to pick THT like most of the time, right? Now, in THT's defense, he's got really long arms. He's an athlete. He can play, and he can handle the ball. He does a lot of good things as well. So it's not necessarily a bad decision to make that versus Caruso. And I'm glad that Caruso is going to a situation where I think he'll be able to get a little bit more shine. Maybe. That's an interesting question. What do we think? Does Caruso get a bigger role in Chicago?
Of course he does. He better.
Well, yeah, but he's got to go play alongside Levine and DeRozan and Ball, right?
I think he's perfect there.
It's going to be similar. I mean, I think he's just transferring.
Kobe White,
relocating. It's going to be a similar role, though.
We got to free Kobe White. We got to do a hashtag free Kobe White because.
Oh yeah, if anybody's getting squeezed out of Chicago, it's Kobe.
How do you guys feel about? Well, how do you feel about Russ in LA? I don't mind it. I think it could actually work.
I did the video on it. You can never bet against LeBron, obviously, even though I seem to do it every year, and then I get everyone comes screaming at me.
I just did this year, lost the first round, but
yeah. Well, I don't know if I ever actually. There's a couple times I said that everyone's arguing. I said they were going to lose the first round. I would always say if these things keep happening when they're down 0-2, like they're not going to win the series or whatever it was, but nonetheless, I'll take it.
In theory, for me, I feel like when Russ is playing next to Bron and AD. Like, I remember, if you guys remembered how the Nets played with Bruce Brown, if you could do that stuff with them, and then when Brown and AD isn't playing, and he could go back to just being the crazy floor raiser, that's what
I'm asking Westbrook to rewrite his entire DNA.
When's the last time Westbrook set a screen?
When he was in Houston, all the time.
No, that's a stretch. Didn't BBALLBREAKDOWN do a video? He said like 4 screens the entire year. Or was that somebody else?
I think that might be someone else, but I would definitely sign on to that. He doesn't set screens. Listen, Russ is the guy. Harden. They make a pass and they just stand there and they back up and they put their hand up, calling for the ball back. I mean, I don't know how that happened. Like, that was never a thing in an offense. No coach would ever design an offense where, okay, you're going to enter the ball to start the possession and just stand there. They must have, they basically are like, willingly saying, I'm going to just torpedo this offense and do whatever I want to do, right? Like, and then what are you supposed to do? It's James Harden. It's Russell Westbrook. They kind of hijack the offense. Now, LeBron does it as well. Every once in a while, LeBron will cut, and it's like a dunk. It's amazing. It's like, maybe you should do that a little bit more. But even still, they're the problem is like they're so good anyway. It's like what does it matter, right? They're going to score an extra half a point a game or whatever it is. It's like I don't know if it matters as much as far as that goes. Now aesthetically, it's interesting. I was doing a video. I talked about this a couple times already on Connaughton. And what I discovered, having isolated only on him with my eyes, is that again he just goes and stands in the left corner almost the entire time. And a couple guys in every possession kind of do that. And it's sort of like, I wonder if this is what's kind of, driving eyeballs away from the game. It's like the offenses have gotten so efficient that they don't move as much. And so as a result, like maybe there's some lack of artistry and interest that like we used to get when we'd watch, 5-man offense, the beautiful game that doesn't exist anymore. Thoughts on that?
I think there's some in between, right? Like, to me, one of my favorite teams ever is that 14 Spurs team, right? Like, they beat everybody by gaining fractions of a second. Yeah. Like, better than everybody else, right? Like, it's just they beat you by second. And I think that'll probably never happen again. Like, I I just think.
Well, here's the thing. Like, not that it won't happen again, because now everybody does that. Like, everybody attacks in the catch. No more triple threat, right? Most of the guys are doing that. So we're still kind of getting that. But I think the difference is that like for instance the Spurs wouldn't set a pick and roll off the top of the bat. They would run a pin down into a handoff into a pick and roll, and then the other guy spotting up would lift from the corner of the wing. Like you get a lot of simultaneous action, and we don't get that anymore at all.
Well, yeah. That's what I'm more about. Right? Like people just aren't coming straight up and running one high ball screen and going 1-4 flat.
Somebody must be like I think I'm forgetting like a team that's still doing this. Anybody?
They're
the Jazz does it sometime.
Which team?
The Jazz with Donovan Mitchell.
Okay. And by the way, the Suns would do it too. The Suns had some really nice, clever sets, but they always had to be like called sets. It's not organic, like flow, whatever. It was like out of a timeout, whatever.
I definitely would prefer how it used to be as far as the harmonic offense when everybody was just like on the screen. It's just like so organic. The 2015, 2016 Warriors did it, but with the 3-point element. So, I mean, if we can get that in play, you didn't see someone just standing in the corner unless it was Clay. Or, it was just beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, but then that's it. Clay is a guy who's not going to stand still either. He's going to move across the field.
Yeah, I would say the
80-mile basketball game, right? Like, and to go back to the Jazz point, right? Like, Quinn Snyder was a pop guy, so that's a pop tree. And then we just talked about the Warriors with Steve Kerr, and that's a pop tree. So, maybe it's just Popovich, like, sprinkling his little...
Yeah. All right, let's give Pop some love. I've kind of been down on Pop recently over the last, like, a couple of years. So let's give him some love. Let's maybe turn that narrative around.
Medal.
He won a gold medal. He did. Man, did you watch the game? Anybody watch the gold medal game?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. I mean, listen, a win is a win. You can't say, it was close or it got close at the end and, whatever. But it was a little underwhelming, I felt like, to me, overall. Anybody else feel that way?
No, it definitely was. Like,
but the world's caught up, though. You gotta remember. I mean, they're better.
No, I wouldn't say that the world caught up. I mean, the reason. No,
but they're better. They're better. They're certainly better than they were 2 Olympics ago or something like that. I mean, that's the thing. The world's better. I'm not saying that they caught up, but they're better.
Yeah, right. They're better, but think of it this way: our expectations and our high, like the thing that makes us think that way is because we're not throwing KD, LeBron, Steph, Harden out there like the 2012, 2012, 08, the 92 Dream Team. We're not doing that anymore.
LeBron won a bronze. Remember that.
I feel like we got to remember, like 2012, it took Kobe
Bryant a good team out there.
Right.
We're not putting we're not really putting our best foot forward. And that's why it's so anticlimactic.
All right, fair enough. I mean, but there's not that many more players. I mean, you're talking about LeBron and the AD. Okay. I guess Harden. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, there's 5 guys that they didn't put in there.
Keep naming them.
All right, fair enough.
When it comes to like we fit our best in like 2008,
Jeremy Grant, and no offense, but we have Jeremy Grant and Keldon Johnson out there.
Yeah.
No offense to those guys, but come on, the worst person on the 92 Dream Team was who?
Christian Laettner.
Christian Laettner.
I mean,
come on. But the world at that time was they were going with Tony Kukoc, and that was it, right?
Kinda, yeah.
You got some Sabonis.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, all those teams were separated. They would have played together before that under the Soviet Union or something, right? I think, or a lot of those, some of those players, not everybody. I made the mistake of saying they all would have been lumped into the same team, but that was not the case. But some of them would have been, yeah. And Sabonis was like, he was kind of washed by then, even though he did nicely later in the NBA. It really too bad. Sabonis was amazing. So yeah, you're right. I mean, fair enough. So actually, that's an interesting point. The world has caught up to our second tier NBA teams. All right,
10 through 15.
Yeah,
10 through 15.
Yeah, and which is fine. And by the way, you can argue that if they were even better, the Team USA with the better players, like at some point, these other teams that are national teams that have been playing together will still have a shot at beating them. I think because of the way they play so well together.
Eventually, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, and listen, Luka. If they find one more player in Slovenia to play alongside Luka, like, I don't know, man. That they don't need much more with him out there.
Seriously, I was worried that if the USA plays Slovenia, that we were going to lose to Luka by himself. Honestly,
I have a question, Coach. What did you think about the officiating in the Olympics?
Let's see. I didn't watch. I probably watched like 3 or 4 of the games, and nothing really stood out to me. Now am I forgetting? My brain is mush. Anything that I'm missing?
Well, yeah,
one big was great. It was great.
Yeah, a lot of players that in the NBA that do their normal foul stuff.
Trae Young effect.
Yeah,
they'll try to drop those silly like pump fake fouls and stuff like that. Like the
that's what I was getting at.
No, and I agree completely with the refs. They were, yeah, that was right. Now I'm remembering some of those because you'd see them throw out their hands. Those are all legitimate non-calls, and I think that the one thing I've noticed about EuroLeague and FIBA more, is that those referees in those games are so good at knowing when flops are happening and don't call them. I really feel like they're great at that, much better than the NBA.
Oh yeah, and it's not like we don't want to take it back to 2002 where you could deck somebody or the 90s or anything, but we do want physicality. It's a physical sport. We want two people to bang into each other a little bit, and there's not a foul. It's just somebody playing hard, Well,
I want the defense to be able to play hard and not get punished for playing hard, right? Like that's what gets frustrating to me. And when you see that as a coach too, where I'm like, and I've said this to the referees in my games, I'm like, why are you punishing that guy for doing a beautiful play? You know what I mean? Like he dove for the ball, whatever, and like he bumped into somebody, and you're calling a foul on him, and like, come on, this is great basketball. Even though I don't want players to dive anymore on the ground for the ball, but nonetheless, so I felt like the refereeing was good, and it was probably an eye opener. We should probably look at that to figure out how we can translate more of that to the NBA. Now, by the way, the NBA refereeing I feel like has gotten really bad, right? I feel like it's gotten worse and worse throughout the years. Starting around, I don't even know, but maybe 2016, 2017, we started doing more.
Scott Foster.
Well, he's been around even longer than that, right?
Golden State years.
Foster brothers. Yeah.
What does Rodney Nunn think about overseas officiating? That's what you should do.
We should bring him on the show and find out.
Hire more foreign referees.
I think Ronnie goes over there to train him, so he is part of that group. He's been out there a lot and with the FIBA refs. So I would imagine that a lot of what we're seeing is some of his influence. And there's no question. I'm sure he'd agree with me as far as their abilities. I think I've talked about this before a couple of years ago about their abilities to see flops and not call them. And it's a training thing. It's not just like he was lucky. He got lucky that when you see the replay, it wasn't the foul, right? They are trained to see that. Now, we have the whole soccer thing in Europe, so they all flop, right? And so that's a culture thing that you need to be trained as a referee to see. Maybe that doesn't exist as much in America because of we don't play soccer like that. I don't know. But we need to do something about that for sure. And obviously here's the thing. The Trae Young foul, I don't see how you don't call that one. You're riding up his back in jail on a pick and roll, and he pulls up a jump shot, kind of straight up. He's not jumping laterally into somebody. You have to call that one, I think.
That's like a trick, man. It's like a clever trick. I mean, I understand that it's against the rules, but come on, it's like you bait. It's just I don't know how to explain it.
I mean, you're right because look at it from the defender's point of view. You're dropping and chasing, so you're behind him, and you need to stay close because you want to put pressure on him. Which, by the way, this is the tenet of my defense that I invented. It was the same idea, which means that you need to start training to play behind a little bit better, so you don't foul. But there are ways to be able to keep your nose behind your toes. You're not leaning forward, and be able to get out of the way, or maybe you're playing sort of 3/4 to behind him, so you're not exactly behind him, and then he can't. Then to initiate that contact, he'd have to jump backwards more and more laterally. So that might be the key. I like that. Maybe the key is as you chase around, you need to kind of pick a quarter turn side, around on the edge of his hip, so that you're not directly behind him, and that would force him to go laterally into you, and then that would probably be the no call. That you would want. So that's interesting. That might be the solution there.
Just like it's so hard to defend. It's much easier to play offense. It's so much harder to defend. It has to be some type of balance. And I understand what you just said, but that you know how much thinking and training and time that's going to take for a defender to, get into his DNA.
Yeah.
It's so easy for you to just stop, pause. Oh, he hit me, and get a shot off. Or it's just like, just let him get the free throw line floater all day because I can't really get behind them. If so, hey, I already got 3 fouls in the first quarter.
That's good. You're right. But hey, defense is hard, as we know. But let me throw this out there. So my new defense, it predicates, like, we have to rotate on the weak side because the skip passing is a real problem against my defense. I will acknowledge that. And so as a result, you're closing out like you would normally do on my defense. But obviously what I want you to do is close out to get behind the guy. Now, I'm kind of curious. I'm sure you guys are all played basketball at some level. Having been trained to close out, which I think the stuttered step, high hand, butt down, BS, whatever, to stop the guy in front of you, how hard do you think that would be then to suddenly switch that and say, okay, now you're going to have to close out and get behind the guy? Is that something that's so hard to do?
Hard.
You think so?
It would be extremely hard because you've been trained to do that your whole life. It would be extremely hard. My question to you is...
It's also a natural thing to just let the defender just blow by you at the same time.
Well, Brian, here's my point about that is, how many times do coaches just lose their shit because the guy closes out and gets beat? Well, think about this. We're eliminating that too. We are now closing out to chase him back under the three-point line with a guy containing in front of the ball, or the center. So it's like you kind of eliminate that frustration too. And then it also works hand in hand with what I want to do for shooters, which is if they're going to shoot, you be the second jumper and challenge in the air. And as you're landing, you're rotating to get back in a sprinter's position to then bounce right back into the play. So suddenly you're kind of making the defense easier to play. Like if I were in high school and my coach said, just fly around out there, just challenge in the air and then you start chasing from behind, that would be fun. It would be so much more fun.
Let me make sure I'm getting this as a high school coach, right?
All right, wait, one time.
Let me make sure I'm getting this as a high school coach. So you're saying you're running them off the line so you're letting them beat you so you can get back into the play from behind.
Correct.
Okay.
Back taps, pressure, yeah.
All right, so as a high school coach, just trying to think about how I could implement that. The hardest thing would be teaching help the helper. Because if you're having the guy fly by, if the guy rips through, he goes hard, your center automatically should be in position, or your big man should automatically be in position.
Well, okay, here's one thing. Hang on, time out for 1 second. What I didn't tell you is that the primary rule in this defense is the center, X5, is always on the line of deployment between the ball and the basket. And he's in the lane. Okay. So he literally just patrols the lane, is always that guy in that help that you're asking for. So he's always there and doesn't have to move more than like 3 or 4 feet at a time to cover the next angle.
So now what if it's a 5-out set?
Well, that's how I demonstrated against 5-out. So what about the 5-out is the issue?
So I'm just trying, because if, let's say the 5-out, like I said, because I play a ton of guys, big men in high school who step out, shoot the 3. So now if you're telling me my big man's got to be on line of deployment, I got a center standing at the top of the key who's shooting 38, 39% from there.
Well, you have the top guy in the zone is standing there too, facing the basket, by the way.
Yeah, that's I don't know. The hard thing for me would have to be teaching help the helper.
Right. It is a zone. Did I make that clear? This is a zone.
Oh, no.
Shoot, I'm really doing this badly. I apologize. It's a zone. So the top guy is just playing in an area. And by the way, that's the coolest part about the whole thing is that top guy is facing the basket, plays between the slots, and can be a rover. And then once we got the wings tuned up to the right rotations, all of a sudden the rover on top who's facing the basket was getting deflections all over the place because the guys are like, oh, I'm just going to cut right through the lane here. And he just sees it and he can step right in and deflect the ball away and get steals. It was really like that was the most powerful thing of all from this thing. My only worry about it is it like too much running? I run the amoeba defense, which I love, which is a lot of running too. But like I want this to be an NBA defense. And obviously the coaches would be like, well, F you, we're not going to have the guy run that much on the defense. But ultimately when we did it, it didn't seem that way. Certainly the X5 doesn't have to move very much at all, which I love. And the two wings we have to do a little bit of work. Go ahead.
I have a question. So because I thought it was man, but I was thinking, are you just basically saying screw ball pressure?
No,
because
behind.
If you're playing behind.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was man, so I'm sorry. I thought it was man. I'm like, this guy is basically saying screw ball pressure. Of course, your skip passes are going to be, because if you don't have pressure on the basketball, skip passes are going to be
Right.
I mean,
Okay, that's true. But so I want pressure from behind, which is also a whole other skill set, right? You need to kind of train how to do that properly. That was one issue I had. A guy was behind him, but when you put your defender in jail, you have a machine gun dribble and you're low and you got to be, like that's good pressure. That's the picture that if we can, recreate that and every time the ball gets swung,
Nick,
that's what I'm looking for.
The next time you watch the Bucks play basketball, if Dante is healthy,
yeah.
You need to show that to all of your guards then, because when Dante locks and trails and he plays defense from behind, he's so good at it, man.
Oh yeah. I got to check that out for sure. And by the way, one of the NBA coaches watched my demonstration who was there, and I won't out him, but he was like, well, this looks like my regular defense because we're always getting beat anyway. So I was like, okay, great. Let's get in position where you're already, let's cut to the chase then. And again, I have to stress, when you play drop, pick and roll coverage, you get in this position anyway. You're already chasing around, and then all of a sudden you're behind the big man's in front containing, and they zone up the backside. I'm just getting there to begin with. And then, the other thing that came out of this was, with the pros I worked with a couple weeks ago, it got them so out of their offense, they didn't run anything recognizable in an offense. It was all just sort of like they did a 5 out and they spread. Now, here's the thing that was going to kill it was a 2-man front. So Rex Walters, remember Rex Walters? Here's a cool story. So I'm doing this presentation. There's like 50 coaches around the gym, and they're all watching this. And it's funny because you can't get a handle on how well it's going. It's like completely stone-faced. No one... I'm like, any questions yet? And like, there were questions, but like, I couldn't get a handle. Anyway, he was sitting there. So afterwards, he's like, I would destroy this with a 2-guard front. Now, I had demonstrated the 2-guard front a little bit because I knew that was going to come up, and we can do a peel switch. But I'm not sure how much I love it, but it sort of works. So if you can picture, I could do it on YouTube, but if you guys are on Green Room, anyway, picture the 2 guard spots, right? They're lane line extended, the slots, up on top. So if you have a guy behind the ball and then the center is in front of the ball, and then you have a guard about 15 feet away on the other guard, he can just quickly pass it there, and it's in a wide open 3. So what I ended up saying was, okay, the player behind the ball is going to get that as a veer switch, is what they call that. But the weak side forward on that side, the wing, stunts at him first, and then as he's coming back, he's going to stun at him, and then the guy gets there to get behind him. Again, that angle when you're behind the ball and then running to get to behind the other ball, the pass is easier, right? You're not having to get weave in between anybody. It's a clean shot. So that kind of works. But the funny thing was, I didn't know it was Rex Walters. I thought it was just a coach. We're talking. Finally, I realized who it was. And the biggest irony of that all is that when I was in high school, he played at Northwestern. So Rex Walters, you might not know, he's a coach at San Francisco and a couple other places. When he was a player, he started out at Northwestern in the Big Ten, and I grew up in Chicago. I idolized this guy. He was a guy who would shot off the dribble. Like, no one let anybody ever shoot off the dribble in the late 80s, and he was a guy who was doing that. He was a good athlete, and then he transferred to Kansas. Nobody ever transferred from Northwestern to Kansas. The equivalent now would be... Oh my God! What's one of the worst D1 schools now? You know what I mean? To one of the best. Like literally, that's what it was, and he ended up doing really well there. So that was crazy. So I had to go back to him.
Steph Curry to Duke.
Yeah. Okay, I guess so. Davidson to Duke. Okay, maybe. And I had to go back to him, and I realized who it was. I'm like, Rex, like I'm a fan of yours. Thank you for talking to me. Even just trying to destroy my defense, but at least I can't believe it was you. So anyway, funny story there. We can get back to this. So that was how I would deal with a 2-guard front versus a 5 out, which would be 1 and then the 2 wings and 2 corners. Here's the thing I didn't show, which could also become a problem. Somebody asked me 3 out, 2 in. Now, does anybody run 3 out and 2 in anymore anyway? I guess that could be an adjustment, but like that would completely take you out of your offense.
You do against the zone at times. If you're playing zone, sure.
Really? I haven't seen even at the high school level. Well, that's my question.
I still run at the high school level.
You do 3 out, 2 in at the high school level? Wow, that's amazing.
Very little.
Very little?
It's only when I don't have 4 perimeter players. Like, if I just don't have 4 guys who can legitimately fall on the floor. Like,
exactly.
So the 2 guys are like kind of big guys and they're trying to post up, and then you swing it and you're trying to post the other guy up on the other block?
Normally just simple X action, high post, low post.
Yep.
Oh wow! I
on
can you
and, like,
email me? Like I would like to
It's
see
way
this.
old school.
That's a
But
wild
it's very old.
when I
Like,
was in high
the
school.
kids I teach, sometimes it has to stay simple. Like, you can't go but so deep because they just aren't ready for it yet.
I
So-
guess. I mean, I'm the guy that taught the triangle offense to freshmen, so I'm always like,
Okay.
I'm that guy. And by the way, some of my
wow.
freshman teams ran that triangle better than the varsity some of those years. And if you want, like Tex Winter, who was a mentor of mine, would take notes on every season, and he'd have them as 3x5 cards for every season for 60 years, and all these. It was insane. But I realized I would never. I don't think I had the mentality to be able to do that. But the reason why I think he did it was there might be one year where like the triangle worked really, really well, and he could then figure out, and it wasn't working this year as well. He can go back and kind of like study what the notes were to figure out, oh, we did this more than that, and that really helped, and now we can, work on that option or something. You know what I mean? Because every year is different. You change up stuff the way you teach it. So that would have been that was a would have been a really valuable thing even for me to do, and I didn't, because I've even had lunch with one of the kids years later from that team, and I asked him, like, do you remember what we did that might have been special because you guys ran it so well? And I'm not sure we ever got the answer to that.
In high school, the one wild thing that we did, because this was back in 2013, we ran a ton of high horn stuff, which I mean a lot of people do, but we were doing a lot of pin downs into DHOs, which like nobody.
Yeah, I did that in high school. Pin downs, 4 out, 1 in, and we have a
lot of
big man at the free throw
pin
line.
I'd always be free throw line extended, and a lot of pin downs that going into
Yep.
DHOs. And like it was
All that.
unseen way back in 2013. It seems like didn't know what they were doing because our high school coach played overseas in Europe, and that's basically all Europe is. And
Oh
like,
yeah. Well,
every team was getting blitzed in middle of Michigan because people are like, wait, what is this shit? Like, how do we guard a DHO coming out of a pin down?
Oh, you know what's funny about that? I was talking to another coach about this the other day, is about the DHOs. Now, for me, the beauty of a dribble handoff, the biggest threat is that when you receive the handoff, you can turn and go downhill. There's only one angle of a dribble handoff where you can easily do that. Because think about, if I go from the guard to the wing on a dribble handoff, the angle I'm receiving it means it's a hard way to turn the corner and get all the way back into the play. If I go from the guard spot on the right side of the floor to the left elbow, and I come in behind for the dribble handoff, now I'm going downhill. If you can you picture that angle and what I'm talking about? We don't have enough of those.
Right.
And I feel like too many offenses, Pistol being one of them, they're all designed to go to the sideline for that dribble handoff. Now, what we see sometimes is a dribble handoff out of the post. You're really going downhill on that reception of the ball. And so one of the 4 keys in my offense that everybody must have in their offense, and I have a video I was selling on this, is you have to be able to sprint 15 feet into a catch, and then you can attack on the catch. And the best way to do that would be dribble handoffs, because you're running, and then boom, you get it, and you're going right away. But not if you're receiving it and off of the same angle as like a pin down. That's the other problem I have with pin downs. Pin downs, when you catch the ball at the 3-point line, you're going exactly away from the basket. It makes that shot so damn hard. We need to figure out ways to set those kind of screens where maybe you're going to the basket. I'm thinking of UCLA cuts, where you set the ball, the screen at the elbow. Make that cut like higher. Obviously the beauty of the perfect situation would be above the 3-point line, so that when you clear the screen, you're open for a 3. Now here's the problem: who's going to guard you that high to then get screened off? Well, let's figure that out. Maybe there's a way to get the guy up there with you, and then when you turn that corner off of that back screen, basically, you're open for a 3.
If you're a good shooter, they'll guard it. Like if Klay Thompson's coming off, you have to guard it.
Yeah. What about, or maybe it's just like right away you're doing it as he's crossing half court. Like maybe they're picking up loose in the backcourt a little bit. The big man's already ahead of the play, and then he sets it, right just inside of half court, and on a quick long up court pass to the wing. Like maybe that's the quick hitter that we need to see more of, because if I'm coming off a back screen near half court and I catch the ball with some space in front of me, like that should be devastating, because that's not only going to be an open shot for me, but if I decide to keep going, I'm going to get a wide open shot when the rotation happens, or I get a layup.
A lot of what we did do was, like, a lot of it was more, like, we didn't really have any quote-unquote set plays. A lot of it was just, like, feel and instinct. So, honestly, like, great way to play it for a high school dude, because it's just, like, you get to basically do whatever you want as long as, like, it's within
that was the point of that offense.
Yeah, for us, like, another huge thing was just, he always called it green light. So if you catch it and you're within range, just shoot it if you're open. right? Like
Right.
just shoot catch, like because I mean that's the most open you are going to be is when you physically catch a basketball.
Wait, all right. That's what I say. Are you quoting me, or is this something you know already?
No, that's a huge.
I
huge
blow my
policy
players'
of mine.
minds because that's what I say. I said you're never more open than when you catch the ball, and then I repeat it,
I mean,
and then I say,
it's
well,
wild that people don't kind of think about it, but the moment you catch the ball, you are the most open.
Exactly, because what happens the instant you catch the ball, right? The defense is now screaming and running at you as fast as they can, right? So why? By the way, that was my whole point for why we would triple threat. Why would you triple threat and let the defense catch up if you're never more open when you catch it on the thing? I had Frank Layden, who you might not remember was the Utah coach before Jerry Sloan, and I had him on the show, and he was describing the method with which they trained, which was catch the ball, rip through, read the floor. And I'm like, you have to read the floor after the catch because now you read the floor before the catch, and now you're splitting and going, or you're catching and shooting, or you're one more for a pass. It makes the game easier, quicker, better, easier shots. But like, can you believe for 65, 70, maybe even on 80 years, that's all they taught was catch that ball, read the floor afterwards. And you can now do that with the right training methods at the high school level. And what I went through on shooting stuff in this clinic, once you teach the proper alignment and proper rhythm, I don't do anything with like angle of the wrist and the elbow and all that stuff because that mythical attainment of the Klay Thompson form is probably impossible for most players anyway because of the way they're physically built. But once you can understand how to unlock rhythm and get the proper alignment, you create your shooters. So no longer do I want to hear coaches say, I don't have shooters this year. You create them. 2 months in the beginning of the year, you create them, give them the confidence. So what? They're not going to be 38% shooters. By the way, 35% three in high school is terrific. Oh, you might have a guy who's 27.
I wouldn't take championship if I have anybody shoot that.
I remember when I was high school, we had at the end of the year, we had 4 people that were 37% and then 33%.
Yeah, and that's good.
So in our whole start lineup.
And I'm telling you, with my methods, you get a guy who's shooting like 25, 26, 27, you get him to like 30, 31. That's viable at high school level. And I do another thing with any player I ever walk up to, and I'll say, "Are you a good shooter?" And a lot of times they'll say, I'm okay, or I liked it, and whatever. And I'm like, no, you cannot be a good shooter until you use your words to acknowledge that you are a good shooter. Now, you might not be, a shooter in the league of like Klay Thompson, but unless you start changing the language of how you view yourself as a shooter, you can't be a good shooter. Now, I don't want to make it seem like I'm creating like, these egotistical maniacs who don't, never turn down a shot. Yeah, but I try and train it where it's like, no, you need to own that first with the language, and then we'll get to the shot, and then we'll work on mechanics.
As a man,
also for
as a man thinks, so is he. So if you don't think that you can do it, then you're not even going to attempt it.
Exactly.
Also in high school, like, it's not, are you a good shooter? Like, it's, are you a good enough shooter, right? It's like, are you good enough to command some type of attention, right? Like, I feel like that's more important than being like some type of knockdown 47% 3-point shooter.
Yeah, and I know.
Are you good enough to the point where when you are out there, people are going to pay attention to you? Like, that's cool. Like, if you can do that at the bare minimum, that's perfect. Like,
For
that's
sure.
good.
And I know, like, when I always prided myself, and I know my stuff can work and improve players because we'd always have one guy at the tryout who would, like, trip over the baseline when he walked in the gym, and he was, like, couldn't play. But something about the tryout, like, he was really trying hard, he was really earnest, he was eager, whatever, and we'd put him on the team, knowing that, we got to work with him. And by the next year, he'd like be one of our best players. The next guy would come in that year to try out and probably like, oh, this is going to be like my mom made me try out, whatever, and it's not going to happen. I'm not going to make it. And I'll pull him aside and say, okay, you see that guy who's like doing everything and finishing and shooting? That was you. He was you a year ago. And they're like, what? And so I always felt like, and by the way, that's the most satisfying of all for the coaching is when you can take a guy who didn't have those abilities and really work with them. The guys who are already good, there's going to be improvement, but not nearly as much as those guys. So I know with the right kind of language and the right kind of reps and the right kind of environment, you can create those kind of shooters and give them enough quote unquote confidence. I prefer to use the word rhythm, but you can give them the rhythm, give them the alignment they need. I even say this. I'll ask my 10, 11-year-olds before COVID when I had this clinic for those kids. I say, who is the best shooting coach that you know? And sometimes they'll be like, oh, what's this coach here? Or they'll try and flatter me and say me. I'm like, no. It's you. You are your best shooting coach. You just need to listen to what you are telling yourself about how to make these shots. And as long as your ears are open to that, that's what's going to make you as good as possible. And that really, I think, is empowering.
Coach, I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question. And I've been thinking about this for the last 30 minutes, and I'm sorry it's a little off topic, but where do you put your best athletes in your defense? Your best athlete, where do you put it? Is he in the middle or?
I mean, I guess it's a kind of a tough one because it depends, man to man. Is it, zone? Are we talking, do you want to specify that or do you just want to kind of keep it?
Well, I'm talking about your new defense.
Oh, my new defense. Oh, okay.
Yes.
The best defender probably should be on the top. I think primarily because he gets to face, because he's the guy who's behind the ball to begin with. It's not easy because we tried doing it where he get behind the ball in the backcourt, and all of a sudden the point guard's now tearing up the court, full speed at the center who's containing near the free throw line. Now at the high school level, I think that would be awesome. That would probably be great because who knows what the point guard's going to do at full speed like that with a guy trailing him. I'm picturing like Chris Paul doing that, and that would probably be a bad thing. So as a result, we were picking him up at half court, and there is some athletic ability you need to have to kind of game him and before you get behind him to kind of contain a little bit before, so it's not just a downhill thing. So and then once it's moving and he gets to play rover across the top, like that's a powerful position to be in. And that's why I would want like the long, quick guy who has a really high basketball IQ to be in that position. That's my feeling at this point. Now, interestingly enough, the guy playing the bottom spot, if it's the 3-1-1. The guy playing the bottom spot ultimately might be is key as well because he's got to close out the corner.
That was my thought.
Yeah,
that was my thought
because he closes to the corner.
Cover a hell of a lot of room. Is it like a 1-3-1 for him?
Yeah. Now, because here's the problem: if you can picture this, if it's the strong side and they skip to the corner, he gets it. It's an easy closeout. He's right there. And in the corners, we play normal because we already have the sideline and the baseline playing on the other sides of the offensive player, so he can close out there. In fact, we kind of had him close out to the top. So he can almost like let him have baseline, knowing that the centers are standing there at the block. He's not going to be able to get much farther. But if they swing it from the corner to the other wing, then I adjusted it. But basically, it was going to be like that corner, that guy in the corner on the defense would have to get all the way to the other corner in one pass. It wasn't really working well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So here's how I was able to stop that.
The bottom guy in the 1-3-1.
Right. Well,
the old school 1-3-1.
But the only reason why that bottom guy would have to go from corner to corner on one pass from a skip would be because I have the weak side wing closing out to where the ball is going on the wing as a skip. But once I had the top guy close out to that, because every once in a while a top guy's got to go to the wing and guard it. That lets the wing stay down low and then pick up the corner. And then he becomes that low guy. And then on the weak side, the guy who's on the low guy becomes a wing. They kind of it shifts positions, which is interesting, exciting. It's a little bit like the point zone that Dean Smith developed, where basically the four guys kind of rotate around the center. And I certainly use that same rule. The center always stays in the line of deployment between the ball and the basket, no matter where it goes. Same in point zone. So there's some. I borrowed from some stuff. I kind of sampled here and there from Amoeba, from 1-3-1, from point zone, and it's kind of a hybrid. But we'll have to keep seeing. I need more data. But it wasn't an issue once I adjusted that rotation and had the top guy go to the swing. Now, I don't have to worry about a swing from one quarter to the next. I don't think I've ever seen a guy skip the ball from one corner to the other corner, right? You're going to hit the basket if you throw it, not carefully enough. Yeah. So that's the one thing I wasn't really worried about, but that would be a thing too. But anyway, it would have to be such a high pass. It's not viable.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Hey, Coach, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Get a chance. Hey, so about that defense that you mentioned earlier, as far as the chase behind, if we had a player at that free throw line extended, let's say the right elbow, would that be problematic in that type of defensive setting? So you have the ball's kicked out to the corner from the top of the key, and the player in the corner, he drives to the hole. So you have the defender trailing that player now from behind, and you have the big man in the middle defending the basket. Now have a guy free throw line extended, and he's going to either flash through the middle or he's going to have a free
Right.
shot. Is that something that we're giving up in that offense?
Well, here's the thing. So the one way to stop that would be just to have the guy in the corner be guarded normally, which I kind of had for the most part because the sideline and the baseline are already defenders. He can just play it like a normal defense. I did have him go top to try and stop the ball from getting kicked right back out to the strong side wing. But I want to play with that because you're right. The quick drive there could be problematic. But the free throw line area is defended by the top guard. And as the ball goes to the wing, he's just basically on the free throw line. You know what I mean? He's in his zone. So if a cutter comes through that area, he is there and he sees it. That's the other thing. His back is not to the basket. Now I know in his zone he would probably open up to the ball as well anyway. But so either way, he's looking at it. He can see the cutters coming in. That we were getting deflections on that. We have the weak side wing who also bumps down to what 2-3 weak side forward would be, like that position near the weak side block. So we have two guys in and around the lane to cover that. Now that said, if we didn't let him drive so easily, then the big man on the strong side low block is also in position that could, to cover flashing anywhere near his area. So we kind of got it, covered that way as long as they are in the right positions and they look at the floor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So listen, I love it because everyone's going to be like, this is crazy or you can't play this kind of defense. But I think that, there's just some tweaks we need to make. But I like what you said. Maybe the solution needs to be in the corners. Yeah, don't play topside. There was a couple of times I was worried that if it went to the corner quickly and then boom, right back to that strong wing, it's an open shot. So playing it topside can maybe delay that pass a little bit until we get back in position. But yeah.
I was no perfect defense.
Right, exactly.
Great.
Yeah, I was going to ask this. How do you feel about pack lines in high school?
Pack line?
Yeah.
I hate pack line. I'm a no middle defense kind of guy. I never want the ball to get in the middle no matter what. And by the way, in high school, it's even worse because you get a guy who's like a 10th man with not a lot of skill, and he gets like into the lane, and all of a sudden he looks like an all-star. And ones, making crazy fadeaway shots. I don't know if it's the basketball gods. I don't know what it is. Part of it, by the way, is when you're shooting more straight on, like in the lane, and you hit the front of the rim, they can hit the backboard and roll in. That does not happen on the sides, right? So that's part of it. But it could also be that, when you were growing up and you're working on shots, and no matter how good or bad you are, you're probably shooting maybe more shots in that zone in front of the basket more. Whenever we've let middle, it's always a bad thing. And then it also leads to the kickouts for open threes.
That's the thing, man. Like, you even see pack lines in college, which literally just lets me know, dudes just can't really shoot shots, right? Like, that's the biggest thing, man. Because because all of pack liners is like predetermined help.
Right.
So like, if you get into any of those gaps and you kick out and you just make jump shots, they're toast.
Well, we saw that happened to Virginia in that first round loss they had, even though they didn't have DeAndre Hunter. I don't care. It was 16 versus 1. Yeah.
You're toast. You're toast. If you make jump shots, like a pack line defense is toast.
Yeah. Now, I had a talk with, so I got into a big fight on Twitter with Devin Williams of 10,000 Hours about the pre-help, early help, and what he kept seeing, and here he got obsessed. He got fixated on this kind of early help. So you can picture maybe a guard, picture like Russ at the guard spot on the right side, free throw line extended up above the 3-point line. And you picture like Siakam on the low block on the right side, on that same side, on the low block, and his man's in the corner, right? Well, all Russ would do was dribble at him because he could kind of get by his man a little bit, and that would freeze Siakam, and then he'd kick to the corner for wide open threes. And I'm like, you can't be in such early help, especially off the corners, but they would do it as well off of the wings. And the good, smart guards recognize this and drive right at him because they know it freezes them and then it can't. So you're no longer like, oh, we'll get back in time to contest that shot. No, not when you drive at them.
They can't get back in time fast enough.
So because what their hope is that by standing there early, they won't even try. Nonsense. They're going to try. No, they know they're not going to beat him. They're just going to suck him in a little bit for half a second and then kick. So it's such a flaw in the offense. I talked to the guy on the Raptors who was part of that defense, and he was like, "Yeah, we don't really want to help off the corner." So I'm like, "Yeah, but you guys are driving me crazy with the early help standing there." So I would think that they might adjust that going forward. But that was a thing where I can't not see it. Like the dead people. I can't not see that help one pass away from the pack line. line, leading to those open shots. By the way, the pack line was a great defense when we ripped through and did triple threat. They're like counting on you to hold the ball a little bit longer. But once you start attacking on the catch and breaking down those closeouts that they're giving up on purpose, yeah, it's over. Sorry, Akil, I cut you off, but that was
no, you got.
that's my TED talk.
I was speaking about pack line. Was I remember in the tournament another really big pack line school is Texas Tech. Like they're a huge pack line team. Like they're one of the other big ones. Mm-hmm. I remember in the tournament that year, they played Villanova. Villanova blitzed them the whole game. Like Nova absolutely blitzed them, like that whole game because like Nova's this factory that shoots a ton of threes and do all this stuff, and they get into gaps, and it's like, they were done.
They attack on the catch. They spread you out 5 out. Yeah,
they were done. They were done, man. Like because
you know what it's like. Okay. So pack line, listen, you can't argue with the results of Virginia. They're number 1 defensive team for 20 straight years, whatever the hell it is, right? So here's the thing. I can remember a buddy of mine in L.A. Was in the DVD business. And cut to 2007, and I'm like, this is not a good time to be in the DVD business. And he goes, oh, what are you talking about? It's like $12 billion a year and this and that, whatever, we're going to make it. And I'm like, yeah, but you realize it's like no one is going to be using DVDs like pretty soon. Refused to acknowledge that, stayed with the ship, right? Went down with it. Within 2 or 3 years, DVDs were dead, right? So why would you, stick with something like that? You have to be able to see into the future a little bit. We know that more and more college teams, I hope at least, the Loyolas and the what was the team that beat Virginia, IMD, whatever, all the letters. If those kind of teams can start to compete with the mid majors or the majors, then you got to realize we got to switch now, or else we're going to be way behind the curve. And that's like the DVD story. And there's no question right now in high school level you should be teaching attack on the catch. My buddy who coaches girls in Northern California, he's got a tiny school. It's 300 kids that go there. They go to the state finals almost every year. They play against the big teams because he trains these girls to play like the Warriors do. They split in the catch and go, shoot threes, drive and kick, and it really is a neutralizer above all else. And by the way, even though it's a small school and maybe they don't have the best athletes, 2 or 3 of his players do go Division I every year and kill it. So you can create these players. If you know how to teach it right and you have the right foundation. No longer do I want to hear high school coaches say, we don't have shooters this year, we can't shoot.
Speaking of the Warriors, we talked about USA basketball earlier.
Yeah.
Draymond Green, I don't know if you're watching those games, he was putting up defensive clinics. He was fantastic all those games. I don't think that they, sure, he'll end up with, maybe 2 points, at the end of every single USA game. But they're not winning actual basketball games out there without him, man. He was incredible.
Yeah, I'll let me say this. I just remember my mind. You're talking about Draymond and his scoring. The guy that I think ended up doing a disservice to himself is Bam, because Bam's low post game is so bad he wasn't going to develop that playing for Team USA for the last month or two, whatever it was. I hope that maybe now he has some time between now and the season starts to really work on that. But that's the thing that's going to hold the Miami Heat back. Honestly, he's going to get post ups and he's going to get finishing down low, and he's got to improve for them to do well. That's what I'm worried about right now, that they delayed that process. I hope he can get with somebody who's going to help him properly.
Hey, Coach, I got another question.
Yeah.
All of this requires basketball intelligence, basketball IQ. How, I know it's a cliche statement, he's a high IQ guy, high character, so on and so forth. How do you literally develop a young person's basketball intelligence?
That's an age-old question, and I've had whole podcasts about this and brought guests because it's an abstract idea, right? I don't know. I like teaching the game of basketball. There's nothing more I like better. The games are great and seeing all that stuff, but there's nothing like rolling up your sleeves and I'm going to teach you guys a new defense, right? Or I'm going to teach you another thing. And so part of me feels like that energy and that excitement about it is what kind of hopefully rubs off on the players and makes them inquisitive. But I also here's the thing. Some coaches might say, you know what? I never blow the whistle when we're in our practices, or I don't blow the whistle during scrimmages. I need to let them get the flow. And that is good to some degree. But there are other times when it's you're missing opportunities to maybe throw a quick, tip in there or a lesson or something like that. Because it's not just like, oh, we're going to watch film for hours and that's going to increase your IQ, right? You have to be on the floor, moving in the space. Like I've seen NBA teams, by the way, do this, which is mind-boggling. Stand on the court in place for like 45 minutes straight, just droning on and on about what they want to do. And I'm like, you just discussed one concept. Get them sweating, get them moving through that concept first, and then go on to the next concept. I mean, it was mind-boggling to see that. I won't out who it was, but nonetheless, so it's like in the moment. But here's the problem: you don't want to stop it too much. And here the other thing is, when you want to offer those bits of IQ, and that's I get the easy way to look at it. It can't be long. It's got to be like 20 seconds, right? Like chunk it into little bits. If you start droning for more than a minute, like forget about it. Everything they said was gone. So 20 seconds, now go, now okay, and then so it's got to be judicious of when you stop that play. But I feel like that in my mind ends up being the real key. There is to be able to stop it in the moment, quickly make the point, and then keep going. Now that point might need to be said a couple times over the course of weeks and weeks, but that is the key, I think, for me. My teams tended to be high IQ for whatever reason. I coached the triangle, and what I like about the triangle was it has every action of every offense in it. So then guess what? You're learning how to play defense against those things too. So like just on that basis there, you start to look at it. But it was like the way I approached the game, I feel like kind of helped. And I feel like if that's what your goal is, then, it's an approach of like, let's discuss this. By the way, I love having the players discuss it. That you threw the ball away there, like blow the whistle for a second. You tell him what you thought was going to happen. And then you develop them talking, and then it's like AI, right? They start talking to each other. Now, there's these guys in England who I've had on the show. I did a 4-parter on YouTube. You can find it. Alan Keane and Mark Bennett. And they developed an entirely new way of coaching, and it's basically player focused. So there's a lot less coaching and a lot less of teaching the players how to coach themselves, and it's so powerful. I need more, more clips, more whatever, so you can really get a handle on it. But just imagine, like the coach, you'd even wear a body camera because you can constantly review how you're doing. But like for instance, one of the things you would do is after every practice, you'd sit down with each player and have them rate you. Okay. Now imagine in America, an American coach in high school, spending 20 minutes at the end of each practice, letting the players critique him. Like I can't imagine coaches would want to have that happen. But man, it's part of the power of empowering these players to speak, have a voice, and learn themselves how to do this and achieve objectives on their own. That is powerful stuff. So. Look it
similar
up.
To like how the Nets and how KD and Kyrie said, hey, yeah, we all kind of, help Steve coach. Ultimately, you have to have someone be the leader. Like the Draymond Green when they were doing taking plays and, coaching the guys on the sideline, and Steve Kerr just be standing over somewhere. Is that the idea there?
Well, here's the situation, because you could get a Lord of the Flies situation where everyone's yelling at each other and trying to take control. So that is why the methods that they espouse, and you have to, if you listen to it, it's like 4 hours, like 1 hour, 4 episodes, 1 hour each, I think, of a discussion. Where the key is you have to establish the ground rules so that it doesn't become like for instance, even in this chat we're having now, 1, 2, 3, there's 7 people in here, right? But we really haven't had a problem with like sharing and stepping over people, whatever. And so it's the same kind of idea there, where you have to train the players from day one. And by the way, it's so hard. It's like that's why it's hard for them to get traction with this whole method, because it's harder to coach this way, because you have to step by step, and they have a very clear-cut way from day 1 through day 50, day 60 on how to implement the practices, so that each guy gets a way to empower himself to contribute to the team and have a voice, but it's not like in direct opposition to other people, and they're sharing, you know what I mean? So it's not like I can just tell you, they all just talk and then it's crazy. But the results are really amazing, and they're doing it with the national team for England, and they're seeing amazing results. For a perennial loser every year in those U17, U16 teams, they're now starting to play a lot better and be a lot more competitive. And you just check it out. I got to have them back on the show, and I need to get more clips from them, because when you see it on the bench, it's like 10 different coaches, and they're all so smart. And they're all dissecting the exact issues they have. Okay, this guy's coming around the screen too often. I have to step up here. Okay, great. Well, now I'm going to move over there because I know that they completely understand exactly what's going tactically. It's really amazing. And you're talking about 11, 12, 13-year-olds at this point. So it's not willy-nilly. You can just sort of say, okay, you're all going to talk and you're all going to coach each other. No, it's very systematic and very specific, but it is powerful. And just even the mindset of having that, like I would do it in a different way before I met them, where I would have them talk like I just described now, where, okay, they threw the ball out of bounds on a baseline. I said, okay, you tell him what you thought was going to happen, and you tell him what you wanted to do, okay, whatever. And then that really does go a long way to helping the team, achieve that mind meld. Can I talk for one more second about this? Because we're talking about trust in the coach needs to have trust in the players to do what they want to do so they get more playing time. Well, the trust has to go the other way. So a lot of times coaches will argue, they don't buy in, right? Well, they don't buy in sometimes because they don't trust that you have their best interest at heart. And that what their best interest is obviously they want to get better individually. And you might say to yourself, well, as a coach, I'm here to coach the team. I can't do, I'm not here to individuals, whatever. But no, the best way to get buy-in, the best way to achieve the culture is when you work with players on their individual skills. And I'm talking about empowering them to split and go and to shoot on the catch and to, to be an active member of your offense versus just like, please don't turn it over. Please don't shoot it unless you're like wide open under the basket. You don't have to deal on that stuff. Once you teach them properly how to shoot better, how to attack on the catch and be part of that, they trust that you have their best interests at heart and they're empowered, and then they buy in, right? So it's like that's the two-way street we need to have more of, but from a coaching standpoint. And then once you begin to establish that, then all the other things I'm talking about communication and IQ start to fall in line. It's really an interesting thing. And I think a lot of coaches who have achieved this might have done it sort of by accident, but we can now reverse engineer that and just give you the skills to achieve that on command. And that's hopefully what's going to happen going forward.
Yeah, and I really do hope that can happen here. Here in the North America, the culture here is a lot of these kids that we coach and then a lot of kids that we influence, they come from homes where they're the man, they're the leader. Their father is absent or their mother is struggling. And then you get them all on the court. And I'm not just pointing Draymond Green. I'm just saying because he's a guy that sticks to my mind a lot. He's you don't want that one kid just yelling at Kevin Durant, you know what I mean, on the sideline. And we all come from these different areas and these different backgrounds. That's not the same in different countries. That's my thinking on it.
And let me just throw this out there because Eric is out there giving some really great stuff in the comments here. Just really quickly. Oh, by the way, Draymond did not have a father, right? But he also is a guy who pushes back and can be. Problematic's not the right word, but they caught Steve Kerr saying something like, "I'm so sick of his shit," right? Like there is that notion too, but there's no question. And by the way, even parenthetically, having coached for a long, long time in high school, we would notice that sometimes and this is the caveman style that we were all doing because that's all we knew from 10, 15 years ago. We would notice that certain players that might not have had a father tended to be really rough, hard to communicate with and get them to buy in, right? It was for whatever reason it just seemed to be a pattern, right? But that's all on the coach. That's the problem. You could just be an angry coach who will retire angry and wonder why they never got good buy-in and blame the players. Or you can look at yourself and realize there's got to be other ways. So guys even like Calipari, who I rip nonstop for the X's and O's stuff, he certainly understands that part of the communication and is able to get buy-in on that end to get guys to play really hard. And that's certainly a really good skill. I wish you could combine that with some better X's and O's. Then we'd have something, and then maybe stop playing the players so much. But let me just say, Eric Weiss is saying a couple things here. A friend of the breakdown. So chunking info and making it available for multiple review 5 times at least is key to retention. Single live lesson won't stick. And that's I think I started to get there. He's helping me now. And then he goes, giving your players a voice is the key to establishing basic feedback loops that are well-established best practices in group work environments. So that's the other thing is best practices. When I see the Izzos of the world and then everyone comes back at me and I criticize them and they say, well, look how many games they've won. Okay. But we're not talking about the methods that work for him. We're talking about better ways that can get things done, right? And who knows if a lesser coach or a different coach would get the similar results trying to imitate that. I want to give tools to the coaches that are the best versions of what we can do based on science, based on brain chemistry, based on the way that we react to certain, external stimulus. That is the key here, what we should be looking at, not just like, backwards thinking. He ground out, 500 wins on that thing. Maybe he would have won more. Maybe they won despite him coaching like a caveman, right? Izzo, for instance, he say what you want, but he's produced more NBA players than all but like maybe 10 or 12, programs across, throughout his career. He's recruiting elite athletes. Okay. He has good X's and O's. So, of course, that's why he's winning. I would argue he's not winning because he's a madman screaming and threatening to hit people on the sideline, whatever he does. I think that's almost despite all that stuff. Now, here's the other problem. We have players that will stand up for him because that's all they know. They've never had coaches that practice emotional intelligence. And so they think that they need that to play really hard. That, on my way, is the most sad thing of all. When we get players that come out and say, I need this coach to be completely disrespectful to me to get me to play as hard as I can, that is it's soul killing to me. You know what I mean?
That's a mental problem right there. Seriously.
Yeah. It's abuse. It really is abuse.
Yeah.
But it's not abuse if you're willing to take it, right? Because we train those players to take it. And again, we're talking about optimal ways to motivate. We know what those are now, and that's not it. What we see the Izzos do, unfortunately. You can't shoot the ball harder. Right? You have to play as hard as you can, get on the floor, all this kind of stuff. It's yeah, but then what happens when you have to shoot the ball in a rhythmic way, loose and relaxed, right? Well, you've been training your players to be a super tight ball of intensity the entire time, and then also they have to drop that in an instant to try and shoot a ball and make it. It's that's not working. The best players don't play that way. We need to have them energetic and passionate and with fire, but also rhythmic and loose and that kind of thing. It's frustrating because the words don't match what they want, and too many coaches continue to press for that, and it's you're gonna be unhappy. The results are not going to be what you want and you're not going to know why until we listen to what we're talking about.
It's like you can get a Russell Westbrook that plays metal to the pedal, and then you have a guy like Derrick Rose, that 2011 Derrick Rose that's fast, quick, agile, but can actually. Not saying that Russ couldn't, he could kind of, know when to slow it down and know when to stop. But Russ is just it's like he's been taught to just go, 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 go. And he just never developed okay, slow it down now, move it around, okay, go cut, set a screen. You know what I mean there? Oh,
listen, did you not see the video I did from years ago about Russell Westbrook's finishing at the rim?
No.
Okay. Because that was the beginning.
Not that good as much you think he would be.
Right. The title was "He's Not as Good as You Think He Is," something like that. Because this is 2015. So if you don't know, the Russell Westbrook and Coach Nick relationship is very complicated. And as a coach, it's always been very frustrating to watch him because of that. He just barrels in headlong and just throws the ball up a lot of the time when there needs to be more attention paid to footwork. So it's not just like being an athlete. You have to actually, have more skill there. I get it. He's got a lot of highlights, and so that's what everyone thinks. But when you look at his synergy numbers and his efficiency numbers, they're awful almost all the time. A couple of years in there, he was average. But if you're talking about a top 5 guard and you consider him a top 5 guard, no top 5 guard can be in the 30th percentile, which means 30th means there's 70% of the league is better than him in these categories. You can't be there and be considered a top 5 guy. It just can't happen that way. And I would break it down with footage at least. So people would argue and yell at me I'm a hater or worse things, discredit me, this and that. But it was I'm bringing you the evidence. I'm showing you the numbers. He isn't nearly as good of a finisher as you think. He might dunk a couple times, but then he misses 5 or 6 other ones that are just gimmies because he's out of control, off balance, and he'll never change. Never. Here's the other thing about Russ. I don't know why he's a point guard. Why he never played point guard in college. He was behind Darren Collison at UCLA, and then anoints himself a point guard as soon as he gets drafted. And they all said, "Well, okay." And it was that's a position that's not easy to play without having a lot of experience growing up doing that. So I don't understand that. He would definitely benefit from some change of pace a little bit. His mid range isn't even that good either. There might have been a year or two where it was okay, but again, why do we want to tout mid range? He doesn't have a floater. He doesn't finish that well at the rim. He's awful from behind the 3-point line. So what is he? What is Russ then?
He should have been
Ish Smith will call
he should have been a Bruce Brown. Like his best times, in my opinion, when he was guarding Kobe in 2011. You know, when he was like that fourth option type of guy.
And, by the way, that was when they had Eric Maynor playing alongside him. That was the best ball that OKC team played, right? When he was the shooting guard.
Yeah.
I would have argued he would have been a top 5 shooting guard, and maybe even better. And because here's the thing, maybe it's worth a video. When you play the non-lead ball handling role, you're attacking from a lot of different angles, and primarily from the wing. That is when he's devastating. But when he has to make the decisions and like the passing stuff, because I know he gets a lot of assists, but there are a lot of times where he's not accurate, he's not on time with the passes, and it kind of like he could get more if he was better at that. So if he could have been like what we saw in Houston alongside Harden for that month or 2 months, no, maybe it was more, it might have been 3 months, from January to March of that year before COVID shut down the season, he was a shooting guard and he was an all-star top 5 player in the league, offensively at least. And he never wanted to do that. And that was the evidence I needed to see. That was his best ball. And it's sad that, like, for some reason, whatever got in the way, he decided he was going to be something else, and it was not his best person.
Maybe LeBron could change it. Maybe LeBron could.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. I mean, he's certainly not going to be on the ball as much. But we saw LeBron defer to Schroeder. He definitely was like, here, you take it. Now, but here's the problem with that was LeBron would say, you take it, and then go stand there in the corner, right? And not be really part of it. And that's hard. That makes it harder on Schroeder. Like, I'm sympathetic to Schroeder because it made his shots harder because LeBron wasn't using his gravity to open some things up. And I would suspect it'll be the same kind of thing. And with Russ, he's probably really going to do that because he thinks Russ is so amazing. He's like, yeah, you go work. I'm going to take a break on this possession. But it's like, no, work together. Run pinch post action. If you ran pinch post action with LeBron at the elbow and Russ throws it to him and follows his pass, forget about it. And then, by the way, you had AD on the other side. Like, it would be over. Like, I have no idea. And I can only pray they run that, or some sort of high post split stuff, which I showed in the video. But I don't know. That's going to require, by the way, Russ to screen. So that'd be interesting.
It's a mental thing. It's something that I suffered with in high school. Once the ball, I was the best on the team. We weren't that great. And it was a private Christian league in Indiana. So I had a problem when I gave the ball up. I didn't think that my teammates could do it. And a lot of these NBA players, they suffer from that.
Yeah, but it's tough because these NBA players are NBA players, man. Like, they are good. And whenever we get surprised about a guy who goes somewhere else and starts lighting it up, it's like, like, for instance, even Cameron Payne, although I guess the argument is going to be he did develop a lot more of those skills more recently, but I would argue he probably had some of those skills earlier on in his career. Now, there's a mental issue too, but, like, there's other better examples too. Guys are good, but, like, it's you can't trade for a player in the middle of a game. This is your team. What are you going to do to make that work better? Are you going to say, well, they can't do it, so I'm just going to have to? And I had that mindset too. When I played JV as a sophomore, I think it felt the same way. If I didn't shoot it, we're not going to score. And I was like, no, I can set people up. We can figure out ways to create a better offense because that just made it harder on everybody. And that's an interesting issue. And that goes with the coaching. Can Frank Vogel, do his Vulcan mind meld thing and get people to do that? What he did on defense for that team is impressive. So he's already got that foundation because that team played defense as well as you can imagine, even without LeBron and AD in the lineup. Although you can argue maybe sometimes I'm not the biggest AD defensive fan anyway, but as a result, like that kind of foundational teaching that he can do, you would hope it also would permeate the offense. That said, I don't think it's going to be an issue on the offense, right? I don't think the Lakers are going to worry about scoring at all. And so as a result, it's going to be the defense. We'll see.
Coach, you just brought up Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah.
And the question I've been waiting to ask was if you had any thoughts on Celtics rotation or maybe what their starting lineup would look like.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I feel really bad for Schroeder. I know he was getting like crap on Twitter because he could have had $20 million a year, right? He could have, 4 for 84, something like that. And instead he's going to get, what did he get? 7?
You got 5.9.
5.9.
Yeah, and it's like 1 or 2 years. It really, really, really is tough. The guy you should be mad at is probably his agent. But nonetheless, let's talk about how he fits in with the Celtics. I mean, obviously, I think he'll be will he be a better fit than Kemba? Probably. I think he'll fit better than Kemba. Yeah, I think that'll be a better fit. So I think that they'll be better.
He's about the same player as Kemba, honestly.
No, I think
it's a good.
I think it's also. I think
He's
it's
about
about
the
the
same.
hierarchy.
At this point,
I think
Same
Kemba's
height,
better.
same type of play style. They're not. They're known as a good shooter, but they're not great shooters.
Yeah.
I actually
like
think he
Kemba.
has a bit more burst in him still than Kemba does.
Okay.
I feel like he'll fit better than Kemba because of the fact that, remember, going into when they signed Kemba originally, at first they were thinking, oh, Kemba could be kind of like the Kyrie role, the lead scorer. This was before Tatum and JB really proved themselves. However, with Schroeder knows, or at least with the projected starting lineup of him, Josh Richardson, Jaylen Brown, and this isn't in order, Al Horford and Tatum, I'm pretty sure Schroeder would be the third or fourth option.
Well,
And
yeah.
that's I feel like hierarchy is like very important when knowing when to defer to certain players.
Right.
I know he'll be the primary ball handler, but when it comes to like shooting and playing that role, I think he'll be a lot better fit because the biggest problem with Kemba on the team before is that he didn't, at first it was first option, then he had to go to the third option.
Right. By the way, the difference between Kemba and Schroeder mostly will probably be mindset. Now, that said, Schroeder was aggressive and did do a lot of ISOs in the Lakers. Again, kind of because LeBron would just say, okay, here, you go and do it, and then he had the ISO. I went through some of that footage. I felt bad for Schroeder in those situations because it's like, damn, he could be running stuff with LeBron and getting easy shots. But I will say that Schroeder to me seems to be the kind of guy that would want to blend in a little bit more. Because I guess, is it safe to say that Kemba never really fit in, right? He never really was able to mesh his talents with the other two. Is that safe to say?
I honestly think that's safe to say because of his injuries. He didn't feel comfortable when he came back to just take over the shots. He probably didn't feel like he deserved it. You know what I mean?
Or he was in pain already, yeah.
If you were to look at the on-off, the three of Tatum, Brown, and Kemba didn't do too well together. But if you were to subtract one of them, like say subtract Jaylen Brown, the two of Tatum and Kemba would do well.
Yeah. Right. It was a mentality thing. Kemba just couldn't figure out how to play off of those guys well enough. For some reason, and I have no real evidence of this, I do feel like Schroeder could be better at that. But here's the thing about Kemba, which I'm worried about, because now he's in New York. The way that Kemba's body is built and the way he moves, functional movement-wise, as far as the knee valgus, the knees collapsing in on each other, we had been looking at this for years, wondering when his knees were going to break down. It wasn't if, it was when.
Right.
And I think we now have the answer. And I worry that, it's simply, you could kind of train that to avoid such deep knee valgus. But, at this point in his career, 10 years in, I don't know if it's going to be possible. And clearly they haven't addressed it beforehand. So I worry that he's simply going to break down now every year for the rest of his career until it's over.
Now, at the same time, another one of the reasons why Schroeder left or he didn't want to stay is because he wanted to have more touches. I felt like he felt like it was the old Atlanta Hawks when he was the man and no one really knew about him, and it was just takeover time. I feel like that's the type of role that he's looking for because he mentioned it.
I know, but if you look at the Lakers profile here, because it's by the way, maybe not to rain on LeBron's parade, but maybe he didn't want to play with LeBron. Maybe he didn't like it, right? There's got to be a reason why he didn't take that offer in the middle of the year to extend his contract, right? That's a lot of money. Here's the thing. Would anybody with a straight face, I know he was playing pretty well for the Lakers, but were they really going to be yeah, you're going to get $35 million a year, or you're going to get $28 million a year?
No.
You take the extension for 20, it was over 20 a year, right? What was the numbers? Who remembers?
Yeah, I think it was 21. Yeah, it was 21 a year. It was 84 for 4.
Maybe if he had not played so poorly in the playoffs, he would have gotten 25 a year. But whatever, you're talking about 4 years of stability, playing for a title every year. The only thing that I could explain that would be he just didn't like playing with LeBron, right, or AD or something, right? So. But if you look at the profile of the Lakers, it's isolations. Let me just go there. He got the second most behind LeBron, so he was more than Anthony Davis. Although synergy's a little bit funky with post-ups being ISOs or not, but even still, pick and roll ball handler, he was the number one guy by far. he had almost twice as many pick and rolls as LeBron did. So it's like, what more did he think he was going to get or want? Like he was getting all the stuff. So it was a really bad decision. I feel bad for him. But then again, you want to be happy with where you work, right?
Coach,
So that's
I was
only I can
wondering.
explain.
I was wondering if you're opposed to starting Schroeder to maybe bring Marcus Smart off the bench.
He doesn't want.
All right, are you unfamiliar? Okay, so we found someone who was unfamiliar with my Russell Westbrook relationship. Are you unfamiliar with my Marcus Smart relationship? Because there's a pattern here, I guess.
I'm on the fence that he does more negative than he does positive.
I am on the I think he does more negative than he does positive. Now there's some positive things without question, and maybe as a coach you like the ferocity and all those things. But man, he is a nightmare. Offensively, and even he's not even like defensively. He gets out of positions too, and he tries quote unquote too hard almost. But I think he's the guy that holds them back. I think he is their ceiling. And I know that I probably lost most of the Celtics fans. I don't have many Jazz fans left because I would talk about Rudy. I don't think I have many Celtics fans left after my Marcus Smart takes. He's the guy they should have probably they should have gotten Fournier and then maybe not kept Marcus Smart somehow in that deal. That's my.
So do you believe it would be Dennis Schroeder, Josh Richardson, Tatum, Brown, and then Al Horford?
If that's not what they're going to... Well, listen, it's Richardson who's the wild card, right? Who they're going to probably ultimately... I would think that that makes sense to me. I don't know Marcus Smart and how he would handle it. Like, they're going to have to decide, like, is he going to cause a problem coming off the bench? He might not. He might say, great, let me go against second units, which, by the way, would be his better role anyway, right, offensively. But they have to figure that out. But yeah, the Richardson thing is interesting because he was bad, and I don't know if he's good anymore or if he ever was great to be a starter. And so obviously that's going to be an issue where if it's not working out great, if that is the starting line, which I think it probably should be, then yeah, Smart's going to slide into that thing, and then you're going to have Smart and Schroeder in the backcourt. Again, there's a ceiling there for the Celtics that will be there until they get something for Smart.
Now, do you think Josh?
I just don't trust the Celtics, man. Like, I don't know why. I just don't.
You don't trust Ime? You don't have any faith?
I think this is a first year for him. Like,
I trust having Al Horford back.
Yeah, I guess.
I really do.
He had a nice break last year, so he should be fresh.
Al Horford was good last year, man. Like,
yeah,
he's nice and rested.
It really irritates me when people think that Al Horford was washed because of how bad his road on the Sixers were. Obviously, he gotten older, so I will never take that away. Father Time does not play when it comes to NBA players, unless you're LeBron James. But, like, at some point, though, again, with the fact that he got his rest because OKC was like, look, you're helping us too much, just like SGA, why don't you just go sit out? And the fact that, again, when he was playing with Philly, his fit was weird. I feel like people are going to take back what they said about Al Horford. Again, with the fact that now the Celtics kind of know how things are going to be. It's going to be him starting and then Time Lord backing up the Celtics. And mind you, I'm not even a Celtics fan. Yeah. Having the projected lineup of Schroeder, Richardson, Jaylen Brown, I don't know, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, and Horford, I think that's a really, really good lineup, especially when you had the spacing of Horford. And then he can still be the defensive anchor. Mind you, that means that he's going to have to take a little step back when it comes to the offense, but having him as a fourth option to fifth option wouldn't be bad at all. But still having that defensive value, which the Celtics were lacking last year. I know they had Time Lord, but when it comes to injuries, you can't really trust him. That's why they're having him off the bench now. I think this.
Oh, is that really reported? Is that right? Is he coming off the bench and Horford's going to start?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
It would be for the Celtics their best lineup technically.
Yeah, probably.
Especially
Time Lord.
I'm sorry, a playmaker. Al's really good at that too. But
oh yeah.
Well, yeah. I bet you Horford probably only plays 28 minutes a game, right? They're probably going to let it.
If he played more than 25 minutes, that's the problem.
Right. So he'll start. He'll get his run in the first quarter, and the third quarter, and maybe finish the game and let Time Lord do the rest.
Al Horford and Time Lord should probably split time.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be very, very Bogut-esque with the Golden State Warriors when they were like probably 24 minutes.
I feel like it's it's also dependent on the team that they face. You know, when you need that pressure on defense, maybe you will want a time lower, definitely. Somebody who can definitely secure the rebounds more and provide more paint presence compared to Horford. But when you need more offensive power and definitely a second ball handler or playmaker, then Horford might come in. It really all depends. I don't know who will finish, though. Like, when it comes to fourth quarter down the clutch.
Well, you have to imagine the finishing is always going to be small now these days, and they'll put Tatum with a 5. Like that's going to be if it's not this year, in a couple of years, Tatum is a 5. I swear to God, like down the stretch of games, that's what they're going to do.
Really?
Yeah, like that's where we're going, and
That's unique.
And Tatum's long, man. He's probably like 6'10" anyway, and who's going to post him up? I don't know. I don't know. That's my hot take for today. But why not? Or let Brown. Brown showed defensive ability down low too, where he could be. You can have those two guys anchor the front court and then go smaller all around them. Yeah, I mean, this is their last chance, I think. Right? This is probably the Celtics' last year now, which is weird because they're starting with a new coach. So Ime's got his work cut out for him. I think he's a good coach. He's going to do as well as he can. It's not an easy situation, to say the least. I don't know about the pairing of Tatum and Brown. Like, we got to figure out whether or not that's a sustainable pairing that's going to get them where they want to go, and whether or not they are going to play together well. You know what I mean? I still feel like we're working that stuff out. I kind of like Jaylen Brown better, believe it or not. No offense to Drew and Drew Hanlon and Tatum, who he can make some amazing shots. I feel like Brown probably sticks within himself a little bit more, and as a result, him staying within himself with the athlete he is awesome. So I respond, I think, more to Brown for some reason, but this has got to be the last year of this nucleus before they completely break it up, I would imagine.
If you're on the fence that Jaylen Brown might have the game come a bit easier to him, might even be slightly more impactful, but you would probably get more of a draw if you were to trade Jason Tatum.
Yeah, more value in the market. Right. Which is weird. No, it's not weird. I get it, but I would value Brown higher as well in that situation. But obviously that's not going to happen until unless something bad happens this year. So here's the question: What is the threshold they have to cross over to not blow it up for next year? How far do they have to go? What's the record? What do we think?
They definitely cannot be in the play-in. That is.
Well, I mean, I still think that they're probably going to end up next year, no matter what, probably being a 7, 6, 8 seed.
This year.
They're a good team.
All right, is a 6th seed good enough for them to keep it together for next year? And when I say next year, I mean 2022.
I think this year, though, they didn't make any moves this summer, right? Was for the financial flexibility for next summer, anyways.
Okay. So
next summer I think is going to be a big summer regardless.
They have a max spot for
because they have 30 million cap space next summer, I believe.
Right, but that's a decision if they want to. Do they want to throw a third guy along the big two they have now, or do they want to make another move there and change that up too? I would think that yes. So I guess that's the answer either way. But I would think that they'd be inclined to break this up and not go further if they don't. I think you're right. They have to be out of the play-in at the very least. Maybe the top. I think they have to be 4th. I would think to feel good about themselves. But by the way, they could be 4th, lose the first round. Right? That's not a good result. I would think for what their expectations would be. And then
how
they
does
trade
Brad
one
Beal fit? I'm sure they're going to try to get him next offseason.
You know what?
He's still with the Wizards, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's a free agent next year.
Oh, next year. Yeah.
I think maybe next year, no matter what. And when I say next year, I think like 2022, I think they are going to switch it up because, mind you, I think Brad is probably just like, all right, we're going to try this one last time, you know, see how this works out, bring in somebody on the NBL, get an actual decent big because, mind you, he coached the team. He knows how Horford is and the fact that their main weakness was also paint presence and playmaking. And you get that with Horford. You get a comparable point guard who isn't going to be touch crazy and, injury riddled. A decent small forward. We'll kind of see how that goes because, again, Richardson hasn't been consistent since his Miami days. And then you get an okay-ish backup, bench mob with Pritchard, Smart definitely, it sucks that you lost Fournier, but it's still a question of if you wanted to pay that $84 million.
Yeah.
So I feel like no matter what, let's say they get bounced in the first round, no matter what, if that's the case, then yeah, I think Brad might blow it up, because you also have to think about the fact that you need to make sure that your superstars or your all-stars are happy, because they can leave very soon. I think Jaylen Brown has 2 more years left.
Yeah.
And then Tatum 3. So if, let's say you want to pick Jaylen Brown over Tatum, well, I don't think Jaylen Brown wants to be in a situation where literally all the stars or great players who you trade for end up leaving. It looks like your team is regressing constantly over the year, not only in talent, but in how good or the expectations of your team. He can be like, I don't want to be here anymore. Yeah. Or vice versa.
So
if you
they
think
really
Tatum
needed a Lonzo Ball. They really needed a good point guard.
Yeah, but
I don't think it's even Lonzo Ball that they needed.
CB3.
Like,
they need a glue guy.
Yeah. Nick, like I was gonna say Kyle Lowry, which is the next best damn thing to that, right?
Yeah, right. Probably.
Like,
but here's the thing. Let me throw this out there real quick, because if I were a GM and I said to myself, okay, we're going to give this team 1 more year, that is the moment I'm going to say, let's just blow it up now. When you're at the point where you're like, we'll try 1 more year, I'm like, what are you waiting for then? Clearly, it's not working now. Let's just do it. Like that's the Jazz issue. Instead of signing Rudy Gobert like they did and getting locked into him, I would have traded him 3 years ago and realizing that that's not going to get him the title.
Well, Coach, if you look at the Celtics' moves this summer, every deal that they made, the reason the Schroeder deal took so long was because he wanted a second year, but they only gave him 1. And the same with Enes Kanter and Josh Richardson.
Right, they want the flexibility.
So it's all 1 year, so they have flexibility. Yeah. I think it might be possible they have a wink-wink with Bradley Beal, maybe.
Yeah, you could waive Horford, which I don't think would be ideal, but you could save off cap.
Yeah, you could stretch him like Luol Deng.
Yeah.
You could just waive him.
Well, couldn't they do a deal for Bradley Beal with Marcus Smart and something? No. I mean, obviously, it wouldn't be straight up, but like I would say Marcus Smart and listen, who would they want for Bradley Beal? They need to have. They need to have what's his face,
draft picks galore.
Draft picks, and they probably need at least 1 more player though. So they would need Robert Williams.
You need 2 proven young players every pick possible, right? Like in something solid. So probably Time Lord, Marcus Smart,
and then all the picks. And who?
All the
yeah.
But also my thing is, like, if those 2 want to play together.
Would you make that deal?
I mean, yeah. If you're Boston, yes, of course.
Yeah.
But like, if those 2 want to play together, why do people think it's going to be in Boston?
Who? Beal and who?
Tatum.
Tatum just signed a max extension, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
He can still get traded. Like, he can still say, "I want out."
Right.
But why would he sign a max then?
Right.
Money.
Well, I mean, but how would he be like? Oh, okay, I want to go play with Beal. What do the Wizards have even to give back to the Celtics if they even
No. I'm not even saying it's necessarily like Washington. Like, those 2 are good enough to move mountains to get to any place to play basketball. Like, it could be a third party team.
But then you have to worry about I think Boston. Call me crazy, but I feel like Boston is still an issue with players, right? Not wanting to play there. Am I crazy? Is that still a thing?
No, you're not crazy. The problem, I feel like a lot of it stems from Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens. So having Brad Stevens just there, you have a new coach, but you can still possibly think, if I'm a player going there, there's still a resemblance of the old culture with Brad.
Okay. I was actually referring to Boston itself, if you know what I'm talking about. Which has traditionally been a thing where, like, I don't want to be in that city.
The Utah of the East.
Yeah, right. So, I don't know if that's still a thing. It might still be. Listen, the state of our country is still weird. So I don't know. That could be a thing too. Which then, but that would require Tatum to demand a trade, right, and force himself
But he
out.
wouldn't commit for 5 years if he wanted out.
Right, and I don't think I don't think it would be like he wouldn't join Beal in Washington. Although, by the way, the Wizards have done some intriguing things. You know what I mean? They've added a bunch of
Intriguing is a good word
players.
to describe it.
Yeah, and by the way, if Beal does Beal's thing and they kind of arrange all the guys around him, right? Like, I don't know, shouldn't they be competitive?
Hold on, I got a quick
They should
rebuttal
be.
to Mess. In terms of like that sign that 5-year thing, when you're a young player, regardless, you're gonna go after the bag, especially if you're a superstar. So I wouldn't think of it. I'm committing 5 years because I love this team. I'm committing
He's
5
committing
years
5
because
years
I
to the
want the
bag.
money. Yeah, I'm not.
Well,
turning
they
down
could just
200
say,
million.
no, we're not trading you. They could just say, we're not trading you.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, but it's money.
And then you're stuck there for 5 years.
I'm not saying no. It's like what happened with Cat. Like if I'm Karl Anthony Towns, literally the only thing that's anchoring me down there is the money. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the exact same thing with Zion. The only thing that's keeping me there is the money.
right. Well, have you ever been to New Orleans? Because man, it's awesome. It's an awesome place to be.
Oh,
No
but
one wants to be the Pelican.
that we need to have a tell-all book about what happened with Stan and that team and how he got ousted so quickly. I'm fascinated by that. And does anybody have any inside information about what was going on there?
He made Lonzo a 3-and-D. Let's see. Not the Steven Adams signing because they didn't trust Zion for at the center position, particularly for small ball.
Okay, so why are they firing Stan from that though? Right?
I feel like Stan was enforcing an old culture or system for a new age team. Definitely.
Okay.
I don't think that
I
fits.
saw a report that Stan and Brandon Ingram got into it a decent amount of times.
Oh, really? I mean, so now that makes here. By the way, full disclosure: Stan was the assistant coach at Wisconsin when I was a basketball manager there. So I spent 2 years with him, and I always felt like he had a really good demeanor for like players and fun and funny and whatever. But it sounds like so I never, as an assistant, I never saw him get into it. But it sounds like he does get into it and is willing to have conflict. By the way, the opposite of that would be like Hoiberg, right, who didn't want any conflict ever, and that doesn't work necessarily either. But there's got to be ways that you can use and methods. Like we had that conversation earlier. If you have a goal for a certain interaction with a player, we got to know what that goal is so you can achieve it versus just I'm going to go in there and let him know that I'm upset. If there's a goal like he needs to understand that we can't have him take this kind of shot. Okay, how do I go about doing that? It's not going to be, what the hell are you doing, man? Stop doing that. Whatever he might have done is an old school thing. Who knows? But okay,
lead with respect. Lead with respect.
Yeah.
They tried to make Lonzo a 3-and-D player. That's not his MO. He wants to be a point guard. When he was introduced by the Bulls, he said that, hey, I'm just glad that the reason I chose Chicago is a great historic franchise, but they're gonna let me be who I am, and that's a point guard.
Right. Well, you know what's funny about that is and maybe this is related. I have no doubt that Lonzo was watching his brother in Charlotte and being like, what the hell? Why don't I get to do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's a rookie coming in here and he's throwing dimes. He's running the point, running the break. I could do that better.
He's not gonna.
He got that from me.
Yeah, and so that happening could have caused some strife over in the Pelicans because you're right. They turned him into like a 2-guard kind of. I mean, I did see footage of him where he bring the ball up, but it was like dribble, 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 pass the wing, and then go stand over there on this weak side, right? Like that was what I would see.
Yep.
Nothing of letting him come off because even like pick and rolls, they might have thought, well, he doesn't want to shoot off the dribble going his right, so we can't run pick and rolls. But it's like no, get him going downhill. That's when he can start throwing passes. He can get him off of handoffs, breaking down the defense in the middle. You know what I mean? All that stuff. That would be, and certainly fast breaking.
I'm not sure why did they not want to? Why did they not want Lonzo? I mean, he doesn't go downhill. Okay. They like Kira Lewis, Eric Bledsoe. No. Like Lonzo to me was a perfect fit for Zion.
Oh,
it just
I know.
hasn't been something like I just don't understand. I'm glad that he came to my Bulls, but like, how in the world do you just let Lonzo go when you replaced him with, okay, Graham is good, but come on now.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I just quickly checked last season for the frequency of fast breaks by the Pelicans. Again, it's not the synergy is a little bit weird sometimes. They'll consider certain things fast breaks that I won't. But they were ranked 10th in frequency. And you would think that with like Zion and with Lonzo and even like you know other guys on that team that they would be running even more, right? Like that's something that's interesting. It's not terrible, but at least it's but it's 10th. It's not 5th.
they should be top 5.
Yeah.
With those players on that team.
Yeah.
And
Now let me go
Lonzo
check.
was really good.
What about the games
outside
played?
the half court.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did Stan try to turn it to Orlando with Dwight or what?
Let me look. I'm kind of curious the games played. So out of the 72 games played, so Ball only played 55. So that's another issue is like, they were hurt and they didn't play all these games. Zion played 61 in the 72 and so did Brandon Ingram. Now, the other thing, the other elephant in the room, the elephant in the room is, or the monkey in the wrench, whatever that phrase is Eric Bledsoe getting the team, right? Like he was the guy that like is the cloud over everybody. And him coming to that team also was a problem. That also Stan probably couldn't handle, didn't have any effect over because it was they put him on a team and he had to deal with what he had to deal with. So I think that was another big issue.
I don't know why they didn't let him come off the bench if that's the point. Knowing that Zoe wanted to run the point, and now that means that Bledsoe is the 1, Lonzo's the 2. And now they're trying to mold him into 3 and D. Because Bledsoe isn't that good when it comes to spacing. Now I see why they had to run him at as in like a 3 and D type of role because their spacing was so limited, mind you. I think their starting lineup last year was Bledsoe with Bledsoe and Adams running Bledsoe, Zoe, Ingram, Zion, and
you didn't
Adams.
have to play Bledsoe. That's the thing. You had Kieran Lewis. You would just have to hurt his feelings. He just wasn't good enough.
Or Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Yeah.
Oh well, I would think that Alexander Walker, the way he shoots the ball before he even catches it, like when I saw that from the year before, I'm like, Stan's going to be really not. It's not going to go well. Like I don't know if that had a good relationship or not. But, Stan definitely has this notion of, you don't want to force shots and don't want to take bad shots, this and that, whatever. So I would have, by the way, that was the one thing I was like, this is not going to go well. But then again, he didn't play that much to be enough of an effect. Alexander Walker ended up playing, let's see here, less than 22 minutes a game and only played 46 games total. So, anyway. But and by the way, that easily could have been a thing with Brandon. Ingram could have also been taking shots that Van Gundy didn't like. And he's going to let you know he's going to be old school on that end, and that causes strife too, because obviously Ingram is the guy, right? He should be shooting as much as you can.
What's his ceiling? What do you see Brandon Ingram?
Oh, I think it's it. I think he's at his ceiling, right?
Wow,
24 a game, 38% from 3, in that range. I think what we're seeing now is what he is, and that's good, right? He made the All-Star team, didn't
he?
Yeah.
So somebody who can make crazy shots, similar to Devin Booker in the finals type player.
Yeah, I guess,
Just not on a consistent basis. It's just like is he a Jeremy? Would you say him and Jeremy Grant, Pascal Siakam are they on the same level?
Wow, the Jeremy Grant that I saw in Denver. Actually, I have to be full disclosure. I didn't watch the Pistons play very much last year. Did anybody? Maybe
I've seen them a couple of times. They're in my division.
Okay.
I remember watching Jeremy Grant on the Nuggets and the Thunder. I thought he was going to be a really special player on the Thunder, and that's why I was tuned into them.
Yeah.
But on the Pistons, I didn't really care. It's the Pistons.
He's still a role player, just with a bigger role.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he went to Detroit and averaged 22 a game. And he was taking 6 threes a game, so he's got a similar shot profile to Ingram. So, and then they have similar body types. So yeah, there's a natural say, okay, that they're similar, and maybe. I would say Ingram might be a little bit more of a threat offensively. I would say Grant's probably a little bit more of a threat defensively, even though I thought Grant's defense in the Olympics was suboptimal, which is strange because I felt like what I saw in Denver was much better. But anyway, so I would probably have to give the nod to Ingram anyway. But by the way, do we all know how old Jeremy Grant is?
25.
Yeah, he's 26. Like, doesn't he feel like he should be older than that? Like, in my mind, he's way older than that. So he's still pretty young. And by the way, that also means that Ingram is not. Ingram is 23. Okay, so he's getting to that mid 20s.
But he's not.
Ingram's 23.
He's going to be 24 probably this year.
Oh wow, he is younger than I expected. I thought he was like 25.
Yeah. Now that said, you would argue because of that age he will get better, but I don't know. To me, I feel like Ingram is gotten where he's good. He's good. That's about it. He's going to be 24 real soon. And so he scored 24 games last 2 years in a row. I think we're getting to the height, which is fine, and it's good enough to be a winning team in New Orleans. They just didn't put it together with the way they needed to.
He should be traded, honestly.
Ingram. So it would just be the Zion.
Look at the contract. Look at the production. You guys are saying that this is what he is.
Yeah.
This isn't good enough.
What's his contract? His contract is here. He's going to get 27, then 20. 27 this year, or last year, 29, 31, 33, and 36. Yeah.
As a co-star for Zion, I don't know what you can truly get back to keep Zion relatively okay with the situation he's in. He's not. I don't think he's like happy, like excited, especially with Zoe gone.
They're below 500 with him.
Well, that's also due to coaching, culture, and just other things. Just not making it all work together. Coaching is a big part. Running offensive sets, putting your players in certain positions to be best that fits their needs properly. So that's a major thing. And then also, while the talent was definitely there last year, it definitely did not mesh, i.e. spacing. Again, Coach, I think you mentioned it earlier with Zoe. But when it came to fast breaks, and full court presses, they're really good because you have Zoe, who's really good when it comes to visioning fast breaks for Zion or Ingram or stuff like that. So that worked.
You know what's funny? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, you can go.
Okay. You know what's funny is, so as an assistant in Wisconsin, I had and I was a manager. I kind of established my defensive identity, how I would want to play. I mentioned no middle a while back, right, in the show. Well, that's how they defended in Wisconsin. No middle defense, strict. It was whatever, and that was Sam Van Gundy's baby. That's what he helped install for Stu Jackson as a head coach. I ran into Stan, in Detroit when he was there, a few years ago, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going? Are you still a no middle defense?" He goes, "No, we don't do that anymore." And I was like, my entire worldview shattered in front of me. I can't believe the one thing that I clung to all these years he doesn't do anymore. And it's like, then you realize how bad they are on defense. I got to check to see if it was a lot of middle penetration. Probably was. And I bet you if they weren't good defending the three, it was part of that too. And it was like, that's just kind of rich irony. Like they would have gone away from the one thing that I still feel like is the modern part of defense that you need to have. And I don't even know why he would have gone away from it. That worked. Anyway, listen, we did this is a milestone. I've never gone 2 hours before in a show. This is incredible. And it was because you guys had such a great discussion. I can't believe it. And everyone who's going to come through here and all the people who were in the room. So, and everybody on YouTube. I can't thank you enough for doing this for me, but I got to go, man. It's Sunday. We got things to do, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. We ain't got nothing to do with Sunday.
Oh, well, hey, listen, find something to do. I got to go to a party outside, and maybe masked, hopefully, but vaccinated. So I'm going to go do that. And then, but this is awesome. I'll be back here on Wednesday to do our usual show again, probably both on YouTube and Green Room. Give me some vibes. I have editor's block. I've been staring at this Bulls video for 4 or 5 days. I can't get it done. So I need help me get it done. Help me get the rest of these done. Because listen, there's the Knicks I got to do. What else do I have to do? Other videos. Maybe some Summer League. Who else? Who else had a lot of moves?
Have you done the LiAngelo Ball?
Oh, you want me to do LiAngelo Ball?
Yeah, come on. Now he's a waiver.
Okay. He's playing in the Summer League, right?
Yeah.
Is he going to make the team? Who's he playing for?
The Hornets.
He's playing for the Hornets.
Oh, okay.
Hey, just make sure you do my Bulls justice in that video. Another thing, if you can, talk about the potential, because I know Billy Donovan definitely did this in OKC, the potential of a three guard lineup, I can easily see a Zoe, Caruso, and Levine lineup occurring
All right, I'm writing
because
it down.
of how Billy Donovan used to run it.
Zoe, Caruso, and Levine.
Uh-huh.
I mean, listen, you
really
can throw
good for
DeRozan
defense.
out there too, make a 4-guard lineup.
Yeah, it'll be an ultra small lineup with DeRozan at the 4 and then Pat Will at the 5.
All right,
Make
cool.
it happen.
Yeah, well, the Patrick Williams is another interesting discussion I'm going through, but I might not spend too much time on him because I got to deal with DeRozan and Ball and Caruso. But I'm going to get it done. Thank you guys so much, and don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.